Maybe what we should do is, well, we're going to try to schedule something. Yeah, so why don't we do that, and then maybe the folks with the council will be on that's just give me an update. Yeah, we need to go
See that, or is that glare?
I can't see without looking around it, but I think I'm permanent to see, but I saw it another angle.
Stu, is there any place else we can move that? It's
Do whatever you can, but the board has to see it too. The most important thing is that turn it about 5 degrees. Other way.
Paper. Thank you for your patience. We'll start in just a few minutes. Mr. DeBeck will be delayed for a little bit, and so we will go ahead and get started. Since we are on the dais, I'd ask that you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, I'm sorry.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I guess I should stand corrected. This is just a workshop this morning, not a real meeting, but I mean it's a real workshop. But every day is a great day. This morning we're certainly going to be discussing Prop S items, and thank you, Superintendent Greer. I will turn it over to you and your staff at this time. And please, as you go through your items this morning, please make sure we understand which items we have to take action on. Okay.
Thank you. We will do that. President Jackson, members of the board, our staff wanted to have this opportunity this morning to talk with you about Prop S, give you an update on where we are. We have signed the PSA, and that would be brought to you this later today for your ratification. We have worked very hard, as you know, as well as many of you, and I think think that's going to be a positive step on behalf of the staff to get that signed and put that in place, and where we can move on with other things. In addition to that, Stuart's going to give you an update, a quick update about what where we are to date with Prop S. We also, it's been a bit of a change and a challenge for our staff and his staff in that a lot of this original work is technology work, and that was not part of Prop MM. And so this is a different approach, and I would say to you that they have done a very nice job working with Daryl Agasse in our technology group. It's good to see two major departments work together as well as they have, and so we're very pleased with that. And then finally, we have some areas that we need to have board direction. Staff is getting feedback from individual board members and sometimes small groups of board members about particular projects, and we need direction from the board as to whether or not this is something that the board wants to pursue, and if so, what the funding sources will be, etc. So with that, Stu, we want to go through this at a relatively fast but thorough clip, and then give board members a chance to ask questions.
Absolutely. Good morning, Dr. Greer, members of the board, invited community members, and interested guests. Prop S is a great news story amongst a lot of grim information and facts that we have out here in the world today. Prop S is a wonderful opportunity for the school district. I'm going to share some of those successes and some challenges this morning as we move ahead with this presentation. The first slide is just a list of agenda items. I won't belabor that. I think we've all had opportunity to look at this, so we'll get right into the second slide. We're slightly behind schedule, and I'm in terms of months, not years, and not across the bond, but we've got a half a dozen projects or so that are being held up in plan check, and we can expect that. It doesn't have any impact on the long-term execution of the program, so I'm very happy to report that. But largely, we're on time and under budget. Right now, we're about $7 million under government estimate for our construction awards, which is great news, and we're coming in about 25% under across the program. One impact that we do have to discuss is the change in net assessed values in the community property arena. Right now, our net assessed values are decreasing at a rate of about 0.8%. Now, we expected about a 2 to 5% increase in property rates when we put the bond together. And that means that my borrowing capacity, at least for the next several years, is greatly reduced. And this will have tremendous impact on how we execute the bond. I've got to restructure my organization and put a new execution schedule together. This doesn't mean that the work won't get done. It just won't get done as fast. We'll have more impacts on inflation in the program. We designed the bond for 10 years, and now it's out to 16 years and greater. Of course, property values change like the weather. We started out in April at a negative 1.13. Now we're at a negative 0.8, which is going in the right direction, and it could be as much as flat in the next couple of months. That said, I still have to plan for the worst, and what I'll do is come back to you in September, around the 15th of the month, with a firm execution strategy based on our information at the time. So this is a first report, and it's a heads up that, yes, things have changed in our financial borrowing capacity. This slide will show you that in 08 and 09, we borrowed $170 million, of which $38 million were qualified school construction bonds, which are zero interest rate. That doesn't change what we're going to do. It just changes how we're going to finance that work. So next year, my plan was to take $120 million. This is in 2010 in August, and I will only be able to borrow $100 million, and then, as you can see in the out years, I can borrow less and less and less. I invite your attention to the red blocks on the slide, which is the commitment that we got from the state for matching funds out of Proposition 1D, our state school facilities allowance. Those are planned revenue sources. However, we have not received our 089 allowance, and we have not received our 0910 allowance either. This is dependent upon the state being able to borrow money for that bond program. So all in all, we've got a very dynamic revenue stream coming into the bond. Next slide, please. Now, had we not done anything about this, that blue line shows where my spending would drive me below my revenue line. As I go on the blue line in about May, June timeframe, 2011, you'll see that at that point in time, I've spent more money than I have, and I'd have to go to the taxpayers for more than $67 per $100,000 in valuation. I'm not going to do that. But this would be the impact had I not, if I do not change my program. Next slide, please. Across the board, then, what are we going to do about it? In broad general categories, my intention, with the concurrence of the board, is to move ahead with my I-21 program, and that's to issue about $242 million worth of I-21 work over the next 5 years, followed up with another $100 million worth of IT work with the 10 years after that. I'm going to continue with my state matching fund programs because that's good money for us. You know, they match us 50-50, so we can continue with that. I'm going to continue with my whole site modernization programs for the high schools and middle schools and elementary schools. However, we will separate certain projects within that body of work and move ahead with new construction projects and things that impact the schools to their benefit up front and delay those things back and move those to the right. Over and all, we have 38 whole site school modernization programs affected. We will build new buildings at Euclid and Canto, Morris, Sarah, the Language Academy as part of this program, and we will delay bid and award dates at 27 other schools. This is a tentative plan right now, and that'll change as my net assessed values change over the next 4 or 5 years. I'm going to have to look at this very, very carefully, quarterly by quarterly by quarter. And right now, this is the direction we're headed. Again, I'll come back to you in September with a final list after I get a third data point from the county assessor's office on where we are, and talking with our financial advisors at Gardner, Underwood, and Bacon. Next slide, please. At this point in time, with these adjustments, you can see that my blue line, which is my fund balance, will be above the zero line, which means I won't bust the $67 per $100,000 of valuation. I'm going to have to watch that and continually adjust it. Having said that, next slide, please. What we have here is a depiction of the percentage of work in the total bond that will be expended by the IT component and regular construction. You can see the IT component, which is your I-21 classroom initiative, integrated classroom suites, takes up a tremendous amount of the capacity of my organization. This will cause me to reorganize myself, taking a look at how I'm structured, what my labor model is, and kind of reinvent ourselves for the next at least 4 or 5 years as a proportion of IT work that I do changes in proportion to the hard construction work we do. And that's just common sense. You know, right now we've always taken on the IT component enthusiastically, but it was ancillary to the heavy construction work. Next slide, please. This is a very important slide, and I think it's at the heart of a lot of our discussions this afternoon, and I don't want to rush through this one. This is the health in a very, very simple one-stage snapshot of our State School Facilities Fund program. The top line represents the balance. Now, many of you were here for the life of Proposition M, and some of you weren't. In Proposition MM, the type of work we conducted made us eligible for a great deal of State School Facilities Fund matching money, to the tune of about $550 million. That money was used carefully and with great consideration by the school district over the years, and the balance going into 9-10 is about $240 million. However, for the last 2 years, and actually starting in 2003, the school district has gone to that fund source to to pay for the property, plant, and operations budget and a variety of other projects. And the top line, you can see what this, at that spending rate, where this money will go. And you can see out in the 14-15 years 14 and 15, you can see we've got a fund balance that's largely zero. If you look at the next line down, the PPO MMR restricted maintenance budget, those are all the expenses at PPO with the exception of two categories. It's your landscapers and your janitorial service, which comes out of another fund category. But in 0, 9, and 10, no general fund monies have been contributed to that account. In 10 and 11, however, the district has tentatively planned, and James Macias has worked on this very carefully with FICMAT and other folks, to contribute about $10 million to that fund, but you can see that'll be expired in 13 and 14. Traditionally, that account line comes off the general fund, so we're going to have to figure out how to move that at least by that date, or sooner if it's the board's desire. The next line is a transfer of non-capitalized equipment. Now, this is non-academic related computing capacity for us here at the district in technology areas. And that money is everything but academic classroom computer equipment. The next line is more system, software, and hardware work. In the first year, there's $9 million assigned to pay for 4 computers in every K through 5 classroom in the district. That's a $9 million. And the rest of it has to do with infrastructure such as your business intelligence software related to PeopleSoft, Apex, and a variety of other applications that I think the board has been privy to and has approved. The next line is our textbook inventory system. Again, that's something that's been before the board for approval. The TMA system, which is a maintenance planning tool that they've put in place and fielded. And then second to the last category is $8 million that is in an account for current construction projects and closeouts from Prop MM. Now, we've got $18 million obligated to that line item, and we've got $8 million of resources. So we've got to find out how we can get the delta down to where it is, where it should be, how to manage that cash flow better, and try to figure out how we're going to get ahead. Now, this also tells us, this slide, that there's very, very little room in this budget category for other projects. Now, the only way that we can get around that and return that money, or if we wanted to use it for another source other than PPO, is try to figure out and come to you with a plan to take the top line, which is the MRR restricted maintenance funds, off of that account and use them for other purposes. And that's something that we need some board direction with, and this isn't probably the right forum for this discussion, but this is the snapshot of this program right now, and we have to remember this as we look in context with ongoing projects and ideas that we have for further development within the bond. This is not good news, but $500 million, $550 million worth of revenue from Prop MM was great news. But again, this is just at the tail end of that stream, and we have to adjust to that as that money is expended. This is one-time dollars. Next slide, please. Again, this just reiterates my points that by 2015 there'll be no more money in this account as it stands right now. Now, Prop S is planned to get $220 million over the life of the program. However, that money is not discretionary, and it can't be treated as discretionary funds because we plan to spend that money within Prop S itself. So James Macias and I have been talking very closely about that and have agreed not to put that out as a general obligation source. It's something we could spend for other purposes. Next slide, please. I'm a little under weather, so excuse me if I annoy anybody up here. The business outreach goal for for our program, Prop S, is targeted at a 40% emerging business enterprise and DVBE goal. We had 37% in Prop MM in these categories. We've upped it a little bit, and we think we can work hard to meet these. We're going to work very hard to meet these targets. They're very ambitious, and I'd seek your general approval on that as I move ahead. And we'll talk about these in great detail as we go forward. We'll be discussing the site discretionary fund, allowance, staff augmentation, and project savings. Next slide, please. The site discretionary fund, the bond language was very clear in that each school across our entire school district, to include those schools not on district property or charter schools not on district park property, are eligible for $150 per student. My proposal basically is to distribute this over 6 years to each one of the schools based on a needs-based assessment. It's about $20 million in total program authorization, and using the September 2009 audit census. The only exception, there's only one tiny exception in this, is that anything that we buy for the charter schools not on district property would remain district property, of course. That wouldn't be held as the property of that charter. Next slide, please. Staff augmentation. Currently, right now, we have about 50-50 50% staff and 50% augmented staff in my organization. I intend to change that to about 60-40. I need to bring people into some key areas that are currently outside, working outside the district. And these are my controls group and some other folks, environmental and our PSA coordinator and labor compliance folks, and a variety of people that I have a fixed requirement for through the life of the bond. Because my revenue stream changes so frequently, it wouldn't be productive for me to bring in everybody under the district umbrella. And with your permission, what I'd like to do is go ahead and execute that plan and come back to you in September again with a very, very well thought out labor model, and then work towards executing that. If you recollect, back in January of 2009, I came to you and asked you for a 3-year contract for staff augmentation. You gave me 1 year on that to look at this and come back to you, and I need to start that process in September because it takes several months to get these contracts in order. So my intention right now is to go to about a 60-40 mix, maintain my flexibility as my funding stream changes, and then move forward. Next slide, please. Now, here's the meat of the discussion today, and there's some very important and interesting projects, and I think I look at them all enthusiastically, and I think we've got some great opportunities here. The first one is our Career Ed Tech program, and then we'll go through this list as we go further. Let's proceed to slide 15. The Career Tech Education Program has been very successful for us, and we've got a number of projects underway right now in that area. Now, the Career Tech Phase 3 opportunity has come to our attention in about the last 30 days or so. And what this brings to us is the availability to undertake up to $30 million in career technical education projects across the district, should we get those approved by the state. This would mean finding $15 million somewhere, either in the Prop S, realigning Prop S dollars, state school facilities budget, should you choose to realign those monies, or other sources. Now, that money will not have to be obligated for 3 or 4 years, but our applications need to be submitted to the State Office of Public School OPSC in the next couple of weeks. And this is a very short timeline for us. We got the heads up. Our career tech education folks have a good list for us for your consideration, and we'd like permission to move ahead with those applications, knowing full well right this minute that we don't have a full funding plan for those. But we will, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity. Again, it's a 50-50 grant. If we put $15 million in, we get $15 million back. But more importantly, we get to do important work in the CTE area, which I think benefits our children in the school district immensely. We've got some interesting projects there. And the other thing is that please be aware, I think that there's opportunity for us to cost share in some things that we have underway or propose to have underway. Most importantly, the Henry High School Creative Arts and Media program. On page 16, we've looked at this list. It's my understanding that the Career Tech Education folks have brought this list to most of you, and you've discussed it with them, and that's what Virginia reported to me last week, and that you've looked at that list and approved it, at least in concept. Is that correct, President Jackson?
Excuse me. As we all know, just a point of order, if I might, President Jackson, it's fine for staff to share information with board members, but individual board members giving a nod does not mean this Board of Education has approved it. So whether it's at this point, whether we need to slow down and seek board direction, or if we need to come back to it later in the meeting, we need to have these kinds of proposals approved by the majority of the board.
Yes, sir. My intention was to go through the brief and then come back for your comments and consideration on these programs. If you choose to stop and discuss this one in particular, we can do that now, but there's more data that I'd like to present. The next topic that we have here, and I think this might be a good opportunity to take a look at this. This is a demographic slide that represents the change in population at the entire Gompers site, which is both Millennial Tech and Gompers Prep. Our demographer put this together, and it can show you that there's been a very, very healthy and encouraging change in population and population predictions at both these sites. Millennial will be going from 230 this year to 600 by 2012, and Gompers has got a healthy new program that they're going to field in the high school area. So we've got plenty of children that are taking advantage of those facilities. Next slide, please. Now, in regards to the Gompers Prep and Millennial Tech facilities issue, there's been a very healthy and important dialogue that pertains to a component of the site, which is our about a 6-acre DG field out there, that in the bond was identified for use as a joint use site by the city, and that's the language in the bond. And we've allocated about $670,000 for a 2-acre grass joint use field there, and that's part of a broader strategy that was the board put in the bond language for $12 million of similar programs throughout the district at about 12 sites. So this was one of the sites that we had there. Concurrent to that plan and was the realization that Millennial Tech was growing to a population of about 600 in the next couple of years. And we needed to field some portable classrooms to serve about another 200 students in the next year. So the staff went ahead and do what we always do, which was try to find room for this and try to not encumber the space to the best of our capacity. And we came up with a couple of plans and met some resistance from, healthy resistance from the Gompers folks on, well, what is the broader strategy for this 6-acre lot? Frankly, we had not seen that as an area of sensitivity because we thought that there was plenty of room on there, and it's from a technical perspective, there'd be room to conduct your athletics. But there was a broader policy issue that was out there, and what was the purpose in the long term for this field? So in the past 2 weeks, after getting direction from you on the 24th to meet with members of the Gompers staff and the Millennial staff, we've come up with some proposals that I think would meet at least the short-term and medium-term requirements for both sites. I'm very happy to say that Mr. Witherall and Mr. Stepp and the folks over at Gompers, and as well as the staff at Millennial, have been very cooperative in this, and Bill Koba's done a wonderful job herding cats and getting us all together at the table to come up with some proposals that I think are win-win for everybody. Now, I'd like to please draw your attention to this large exhibit. I think everybody's got a copy here of 3 general proposals, and with your permission, I'd like to proceed to this drawing area over here. to the right.
This is the area in question that we have. And the idea the staff had was to relocate a series of portable classrooms on about the top 10% of this field. And we felt that there would be plenty of room to carry on normal athletic events for both sites around that perimeter, around the rest of it. So that was our plan. Now, in context, it costs about $50,000 to move a temporary classroom. And we were moving them from Mandeville School, and we got the permits, and we did all the work to do that. We're going to put a series of 11 portable classrooms in the top 10% of this field. And the idea at the time was to leave the space for a potential 15,000 square foot, 12-room classroom for Millennial. And then we said we want to be consistent with board decisions that were made in 2008 that recognized the need for a bus turnaround as this population increase. But what we had to deal with was we're going to go up to 600 students at Millennial, and this is a district-wide, federally approved magnet school. And we're going to go from small school buses to large school buses. And some time ago, everybody realized that, hey, we have a traffic problem. The small buses were going to come down on Carolina Avenue, as they do right now, and turn around and here and come back. And there's enough room for these two small buses to pass each other in this lot and come out. We didn't feel that with this increased population, that would work for us for the large buses coming in from the outer area. Also, we've got 4 to 6 buses per day, actually per hour, small buses that come in and drop off students at a medical therapy unit over here, which is on the site. So we've got some traffic, we've got parent traffic and so forth. Dr. Greer gathered us all together and said, well, we've got to solve this problem. We came up with a plan initially and put an access way here. We didn't want to cover the field. And then we thought we'd move it over in this area, and which we did. So we moved ahead with that plan based on that direction. That met with some resistance. So we went back after your direction back, and we decided to take this whole issue of the turnaround and bring it to a joint community task force, community school task force between SU and John's. So that issue is fielded right now. It's just pushed aside for a while, and they have to come back to that. Right now, the students at Millennial are dropped off on Carolina. They make their way over to the school. We've got some issues on Carolina as well with large buses. Or we could just elect to use small buses at an increased cost to the district to get these people, these students into the site. But we're going to allow I think it's my recommendation that the design task force takes that issue on, and we try to come to some agreement on how best to bus students into their area. Now we've come up with 3 proposals. Proposal 1A calls for placing 4 portables on this site. Now there's a couple of phases in here you can see in the drawings, but in a nutshell, what we have are 4 portables and construction of a 15,000 square foot structure right here. This would mean that ultimately 11 portables would be put on this upper field in the long run. We would put these 4 in here immediately to meet the requirements of the 200 extra students, additional students, and then eventually place them over here. We build this building out with your permission, and we've got about a $13 million price tag on that initiative. So what we have is a new building. We've got 4 portables down here temporarily, and then we've got a series of portables on the upper hill. Technically, the site looks like a valley. There's a 20-foot hill over here. There's a 10-foot hill on this side. We've walked that. This site is encumbered with a Caltrans environmental mitigation here. Now, mitigation agreements are mitigation agreements. They're not cast in stone, but what that would mean, if I had to use this property for any other purposes, I would have to find other locations in the school district to mitigate. I can't walk away from a mitigation contract with with somebody. And I'm not sure what caused that or how long it's been in here. I don't have that data here available, but this makes it difficult to develop this property. And we've got some great biology work up here, and I think there's some partnership agreements with local universities and so on. And this is the Choice Creek area, which is sensitive. So this makes it very difficult to do anything in that spot. So what we really have is a site at this end which is encumbered by current structures, the medical therapy unit, and some other things that make it very difficult to do anything down this end of the campus. So this leaves us over here. Now that's basically Plan A. Plan B is, well, we won't build this building. It's about $7.5 million. And what we'll do is we'll put the 4 units over here, and then we'll build out the rest of the portables on the spot where the building was going to be. And that's if the board doesn't want to approve the $7.5 million building. The Plan C, which was the original district plan for us, absent bus turnaround, would be to put 11 portables up here and a facility, and then build out this building. And that would be nice. Now, all of these are executed, and they're good plans, and the win-win. The first two you can be considered the win-wins that the team put together, the plans A and B. One has the 15,000 square foot building, and the other one doesn't. And those are the proposals that the joint Olivia Gompers San Diego Unified School District team brings to you this morning for your consideration. And at the appropriate time, I think we could have a healthy discussion in that area about that.
And we'll get on with it. Now, as part of the scheme,
is to, this is difficult for is to build a soccer field, combination soccer football field, and a baseball field and a softball field as part of plans A and B. Now that improvement would cost us about $4.5 million, $4.5 to $6 million. For the field in this area, you can see it on the drawing, and a baseball field facing the northeast, and a softball field that faces to the southwest. Those are both parts of Plan A and B. Now, please, just for your recollection, we've got $670,000 in the program for field improvements. Now, the other issue is that, one, there's two legal issues. One, can we have to persist with the agreement we have in bond for the joint use field. That's one consideration. And another consideration is, can we reprogram money with progress for this? And our legal staff has indicated yes, both things are up to the discretion of the board.
Yeah, the real quick question, the real quick point here is that when this was voted on and approved by the voters, this was presented as a joint use field between the district and the city, which, just for everyone's just in the public's information, what that basically means is that we would take Prop S dollars, build the field, but the city would maintain it. Now, again, in Prop S dollars, we did not put enough money in here to do an AstroTurf type field that would require little or minimal maintenance, which, quite frankly, if you're going to do something like this, I would propose that we would try to find dollars and do it right so that it would be here over time. Trying to maintain grass without an irrigation system is very, very difficult for the city. And you've heard speakers come talk to you about teaching kids to slide on that field that was not something they could do. So anyway, that's just a quick issue, but I do think that issue has to be resolved by this board first about the issue of joint use. And the key there is Staff has researched this, and this is a board decision because this is something that you can say that we're going to develop this field, we're going to use it in partnership with Gompers, and then we would have to go, if you wanted, back to the city and say, with that understanding, would you still agree to this being a joint use facility under that arrangement? Because it is a different legal arrangement than what was laid out when this was put forward in the bond. Okay, Stu.
If I can.
Yes, ma'am.
Just the irrigation, there's no plan for irrigation system on this?
No, we'd have to build one with that.
That's what, thank
if
you.
We're going to put the...
Can we just
That'd be
hold
part
our
of the
questions, and we'll go back and have an in-depth conversation about all
Yes,
these
ma'am.
issues. Thank you.
In a nutshell, basically what we have is a requirement to house an additional 200 students. We've got an athletic program that's in its infancy at the high school, which is a good news story, and we need to find what to do about that. We've got a safety and security issue with parking, and then we've got some opportunities to develop a building, a 15,000 square foot building on MTM. So, and I look forward for your comments on that. Let's move ahead very quickly to our next discussion item, which is going to be the Crawford Mann Educational Complex. Now, I invite your attention to, I think you've got a large drawing here. This Mann Crawford in the bond program has about $120 million in it. Mann Middle School, and I think you've all been out there a number of times, has had some recent Prop MM work, but not nearly enough to bring it up to what you would call an acceptable standard for our school district. We've got a new library out there. They've got a pretty decent food service spot. They've got an excellent auditorium, I think, which I find fascinating. It's a great one. But the rest of the site really needs it really needs to be rebuilt. And the bond provided a lot of money in the program for that, and that's what was planned over a year and a half ago when this concept was when this plan was put together. Crawford, which is down to the south, relatively southeast of that and adjacent to the school site, is in a little bit better shape, but again, it needs a lot of work. There's a proposal that was brought forward to me to develop a concept where we can locate Mann Middle School on what's currently the Crawford site, and that would take the Crawford High. We would rebuild a Crawford High School in its entirety down on the south. I guess you would call that the southeast quadrant. It's a flat, undeveloped piece of property down in that area. Well, we could find room for that, and then that would give us room once we got that built to go ahead and build an improved Mann Middle School on there. And we would take the entire Mann Middle School site and develop a world-class athletic facility to include a large gymnasium, a new football field, a series of playing fields, and all the support attributes that would go to that. Now, that site would be used jointly by Crawford and Mann. Now, the delta in that program, and please let me just qualify this, is that these are conceptual estimates. But in a nutshell, to do both of these projects is in the range of about $180 to $200 million. So we've got a significant delta in that, and that provides us with some challenges and opportunities. And I invite your comments on that. Now, this would be, if we could pull this off and we could come up with the money, this would be a world-class athletic complex. There wouldn't be anything in the district that could possibly compete with this. This would be wonderful for that community area, which has really been, and certainly the Mann campus, which has been in a substandard facility for quite some time. So this is something we'll have to come back to after I present my presentation. We'll go through one of these things issue by issue, and then we'll come back to that. And our decision point will be, should we go for the additional scope for the entire complex? Next slide, please. Henry Performing Arts Center. Currently, Henry High School has something called a cafetorium. And it was a creative concept by the architects a number of years ago to try to put into that complex out there an attribute that would serve two purposes. And I'm sure it had to do with funding at the time and so forth. It doesn't serve the need of the school system. They've got a very dynamic and active performing arts program out there, and I can see their band director here. He's got his model already built. Makes my job a lot easier. But they really have a tremendous requirement for this. Again, the cost for this, it would be in addition to the scope of the project of about $8.5 million or so for about 1,000-seat stadium. A complex, performing art complex. And again, the thought would be, would reprogram money within the bond to pick up the delta. We would perhaps use some money from our CTE grant, and then maybe go to state schools for a couple $1 million. This is achievable for us. It's a great vision for a school that does not have an assembly capacity. So that's a board decision that we want to have you help us with this morning. Next slide, please. Salk Elementary. Salk Elementary is a school in the Mira Mesa area that has been tied up in environmental mitigation. We've got a fairy shrimp program. You're all familiar with that. It's still wrapped up in legal issues in City Hall. We thought we saw a breakthrough, but they've got a new attorney down there that says that there's pending legislation that would possibly impact this in an area of land mitigation, so they're holding their opinion for another couple of weeks until they can get that straightened out.
In a good way or a bad way?
To the right. We've waited another couple of weeks.
In a bad way?
In a bad way. This is not good for us.
All right, thank you.
But in any event, we've already gone to our board. We thought they were ready to go to their board. They've got a new attorney down there that's taking another look at this. So we're back in the hopper. But anyways, I think we'll overcome this challenge. There's $31 million set aside for this. Our demographer tells us that we need the school in about the 2014-2015 period of time. We've done the demographic work. So it's my recommendation that we move ahead with this and continue to press with this issue with your permission. Next slide, please. Central Wilson. Central Wilson is problematic. It's not really on our planning horizon yet, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention to say that we're going to start this planning early, at least with community discussions, because this will be a very important and volatile subject in the Central Heights, in the City Heights area. Of course, everybody understands that Central Elementary School has a gas line that goes through it, which encumbers the space, and that we've got room over at Wilson. So there's been some ideas about a K-14. There's some ideas about a number of possibilities to develop that area, and my desire is to get approval to the board to start those discussions early, get the community on board as soon as we can. I think this will be a very lengthy and healthy community discussion, but I don't want to paint myself in a corner and saying that I want to wait. So my idea is to accelerate the planning on this, and I'm certainly going to need all the board support I can help on this one, because I think people are lined up already with ideas and so forth. And the first thing is, what's our requirement in the school district? What is it we require, and what do our children need? And then we'll go from there. That concludes my presentation, and so really the decision points are when we come back to this again, and if we could go back to the slide that lists all the ones that we have for board decisions, and I'm ready to answer anybody's questions. The career technical education question is the one we need.
I'm going to look at our agenda,
Yes, ma'am.
our item here, and if the board will indulge me, I will turn it over to page 2. and we'll follow that
Yes, ma'am.
that list. We'll go in that order so we can make sure that we're following along. The first thing that is listed there is the career tech, and yes.
I'm sorry, Chair. I just wanted to get a little bit more clarification on the state school facilities funds.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Before we do that. Okay, so I'm on page 9. I'm not sure which slide that is. Yeah. Okay, so Stuart, am I understanding correctly that, first of all, this is state school facilities money that's left over from Prop MM?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we will be getting additional match for Prop S.
Yes, sir.
And we have a sense of when and how much?
No.
Yeah.
We have a sense of how much.
Yeah.
And we've got it in the program.
Yeah.
But it is dependent on the state's fiscal ability to borrow money under Prop 1D.
Yeah. Now, that money, when it comes to us, is that restricted to only the Prop S projects that are laid out in the ballot?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that money is only meant to augment the Prop S funds.
The program was built with $2.1 billion worth of bond money, and $200 million or so of matching funds.
Okay.
And we won't get as much in this one because we're not building as many new schools. The 1D money is really tied up with new construction.
Yeah.
And a lot of the work we're doing is in IT and is in rehabilitation work.
Yeah, okay. So then what you had said earlier is that there's very little in the existing state school facilities money that's left over from Prop MM, that we've got very little discretion to, so I mean, a lot of these decision points are an additional $4 million for the Patrick Henry, an additional $60-80 for...
Absolutely.
And are you suggesting that one potential source of that additional money might come out of this?
The only way that we could tap or allocate this money is if you elected on the top line and the top red line is to say, well, we're committed to taking those funds and off of that list and paying for them out of the general fund.
Right. So in other words, if we were to take $4 million or $10 million or whatever from, for any of these projects out of state school facilities money, in a sense, we'd have to put general fund money back into...
Traditionally, the PPO line is a general fund obligation. That's current operations for the school district. This is to repair and repair daily maintenance on pay for the salaries of your people that maintain the district's real property.
And we're paying for that now out of the balance in state school facilities money, but we have to replace that with general fund money.
Yes, sir. And we're going to have to do that by 13-14 anyways.
Yeah.
So I think what James has done is he's looked at that top line.
Yeah.
And next year he's applied actually 10-11 applied $10 million or so out of general fund money to supplement that.
Okay.
But we're going to have to do it anyhow.
Well, down the road.
Absolutely.
But during these next few years when we're in the middle of this.
No, sir.
Right.
But again, this is the board's decision.
Yeah.
And this is an option that we have to have.
Yeah.
And I bring it to you for that. And again, the purpose of this slide isn't to really commit the board to moving funding around in these categories, but it's to bring it to your attention and to say, hey, this is an item that we need to have careful consideration on this, and what are we spending the state schools money on?
Yeah.
It's been a wonderful benefit to the school district for an awful long time.
Yeah.
But it's like all good things, it's going to come to an end here.
Yeah, so when we look at decision points about allocating extra money to a project, and if we say that one potential source of that money would be the existing balance in state school facilities money, what I'm hearing is, what we're really saying is, it's the general fund.
You're going to have to reprogram it with another source of money.
Yeah.
Now, we've got development money, and we've got developer fees, but those have been equally encumbered by other things.
Yeah.
The K-8 conversion program and so forth. But again, this is a broader discussion.
Okay.
You also have part of that discussion, you also have money in Prop S that was put in by staff that was operating on a set of principles that may change over time. For example, we've got 2 schools planned to go up at Miramar, 2 elementary schools, and that may change. We have a different president, and we have a different focus with military. We don't know yet whether the Marine Corps is going to build out housing there that they once said they were going to, and I know that's something that Bill Koba is working on for us, that he's trying to, he's got some contacts there to see what their plans are. But again, we don't know yet whether or not that would look at. We'll talk about Salk Elementary School here in just a few minutes, I'm sure, and that's another issue. Do we really need that school there? Or if you do you need it? Do you have other needs now versus 2015, 2017, when we're going to have a whole lot more needs by then and probably going to have another stab at another bond somewhere down the road. Those are the kinds of things that we're trying to get at. What we're asking you for today is some type of direction by the board around some of these projects, because the staff is beginning to spend more and more time. They've spent a lot of time in concept design now based on feedback from individual board members, but not from the board. And so that's kind of what we're after from you.
So yes, please, Dr. Evans.
I have one general question.
Yes.
So that falls under all of these, and it's a little vague, but I'm trying to make it clear. In terms of the whole Proposition S timeline, and you're trying to plan things out so we can do things in an orderly manner the next few years, I just want to have an idea of when certain things have to be decided. For example, if when Proposition S was written, obviously it was based on the reality at the time, and obviously over these 10 to 15 years, things keep changing, and they're going to have, I'm sure there have to be adjustments. So my question is, how do we, I'm just trying to get this clear. If we're going to be having meetings in the next 2 or 3 months discussing our whole philosophy about the type of schools we want to have, where we want them located, issues about transportation, and so forth. So if we're having discussions about that big picture issue in the next 2 to 3 months, what is the bearing on this in terms of decisions we're making now? In other words, if we make some decisions today about directions and then we decide we want to look at the big picture the next 2 to 3 months, is that going to kind of preempt what we do? Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, there's 3 levels of planning, right? There's a tactical, operational, strategic level. And I think you're talking about a strategic level planning vision for the district. You know, so your concept of perhaps a different governance model, you know, or your concept of community involvement with schools really is the foundation for any follow-on discussion as we get into execution. I certainly think that a discussion of the man site is part of a strategic discussion. You know, that's a large capital outlay. It'll impact on how you want to put schools together. It involves a cluster, it's community involvement, and so forth. Certainly, the same thing applies to Wilson, Central Wilson. You know, that's a big.
Can I just stop you for a minute? Because I think the point that Dr. Evans is trying to make is that we have called for a comprehensive study of where our students are and where we need to place our schools.
Yes, ma'am.
And that study should take place over the next few months. Given that, on this list that we have here today, which items do we really need to look at? Because I think that discussion, and I'll call it the Evans study for right now, the Evans study will help us define what we want to build and where we want to build it. And that's going to take place over the next couple of months. So given the fact that is being looked at and being prepared for us, what items on
the Central Wilson, the man site, and those
Henry.
2, and the Patrick Henry, you know, that's an important attribute for that school.
It's important for all of these attributes are important.
Right.
The question that we're trying to get to is, of this list today, because we don't want to waste, we know that you guys...
Well, we need a decision this morning. You know, we need
on which ones?
We absolutely have to have a decision.
On which ones?
On the Gompers.
Gompers? Okay.
You know, we have to absolutely move ahead with the Gompers.
Okay.
I think the Henry site is something that, you know, is underway now. We've got the design task force headed out there.
Maybe underway. We haven't even approved it yet.
No, the design. The whole site modernization is underway, ma'am.
Okay, very good.
So I need direction on this particular thing so we can move ahead with it. And I think that's an
It's
easy.
also part of the CTE funding
Right.
for the...
Well, we have not approved that yet.
Yes, ma'am.
So you can't do things, which is the whole point of discussion today.
Right.
And that is, and Superintendent is very clear, staff cannot go out and start preparing work without the board, not one board member, which means me. I'm guilty sometimes, but for all the board members to understand, the staff cannot go out and start people working without the whole board's a collective body saying it's okay. So Dr. Evans' point this morning is very relevant to this because we agreed as a board, the board direction was we would do a demographic study of our district to decide where our school needs are.
Right. Central Wilson and Man Crawford and Salk certainly fall into those long-term range things. In the short term, the other two or three issues, the use of the discretionary site funds, I think that's a great news story. We can get that out there as quick as possible. The board direction on that would be very useful to me.
Okay, so Dr. Evans, has he got there yet?
Right. So it was just, I think you answered it. There might be some others left out, but basically, which ones, another way to put it, which ones could not wait 2 to 3 months for direction?
Exactly.
Well,
or ideally.
Just so you're aware, and to help Stu out here, clearly he recognized a couple that could be tied to the demographic study, the Central Wilson, the Salk, the Crawford Man. Did want to bring to your attention that some of the Career Tech folks are here. Ginger's up in Stanford at the multiple pathways discussion. I talked with her last night because I was up there. I think what you want to focus on is also Career Tech Ed. The application's due in 18 September. A little bit of time, but we do need to socialize that one with you sooner rather than later.
It's on the agenda for August 4th. What's the actual item on August 4th? Because I saw somewhere it's on the agenda for August 4th.
That's a Career Tech Ed.
Okay. Does it have to go to the 4th of August?
Which they have to develop.
Okay.
They have to develop the grant writing for all of those projects. It takes, weeks to
now,
do that.
The
But they're
deadline
bringing to
for
us
the application
conceptually.
is the 18th of September, just so you know what the other timeline is.
So the two lists, so on the long-term issue, there's Man, Central Wilson, and Salk, and then in the shorter term, there's Gompers, Henry, and CTE.
Yes. Right. That's how I think.
Okay. That's what I see. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we'll proceed to try to get answers for those, at least those three, and for you. And then we do. Before we start, I'm sorry, we do have public comments, and under our new way we're going to do this, we said we would have the staff present, then we would have public comments, and then we would have board discussion. So let me let the public speak, and we'll go from there. We have Matt Kalal, I think it is, and David Amos. Amos, okay. I think Sandy Mathins, I can't see your last name, but Sandy. Thank you very much, Sandy. Tom Rowe, Ann Runge, Cecil Stapp, and Esther. I'll get it right one day, Esther.
Hello, I'm Matt Kalal. I'm the Director of Instrumental Music at Patrick Henry High School, and actually with me today are three other teachers from Patrick Henry High. Chris Carr, who's the drama teacher, Carol Fleming, who just had to leave, who's the choral director, and then also Kathy Schultz, who's engineering teacher and in charge of the Engineering Academy. The model you see over there in... the model that you see over there was actually created and built by students as a part of the ACE program in the engineering department, which is actually was completely generated by them out of a need that engineering group of students felt was a need on Patrick Henry campus. Let me probably set that right there. So this is not saying this is a model of what is going to be built. This is just what students generated. Students built this. They were guided and had direction actually from professionals in fields, architects, contractors, etc. My purpose today is basically to give you more information on Patrick Henry High School, its current facility, and potential uses for for a theater as an educational facility. And in looking at this, I've also been using the district's 2020 vision too. The current space that we have is essentially it's an elementary school style cafetorium, and it is very insufficient for our needs. On this list, because I don't want to take too much time, but on this list there are many things that you can see that are issues with the current performance facility, the cafetorium, and on the stage, as far as the stage and the seating area. When we do assemblies for the school, the counselors have to meet with grade levels over the course of 4 or 5 class periods instead of one big meeting, which could happen in an actual theater. So there's disruption of class time that takes place because of a lack of proper facilities. I've had people that have not come into my program because they look at our facility compared to what they had in middle school, and the middle school facility is actually superior to what's at the high school. So instead of looking forward, they're actually looking backwards. And as I've been at Patrick Henry for 13 years, which is actually the longest term of any instrumental teacher there, and from the day I stepped foot on that campus, I realized that there was a need with this performance facility and its use that we've had during my time there. Our performing arts program is that? Okay, thank you.
I think you wanted to say is growing.
Is growing, and yes, thank you. Yes, it's growing. We serve over 400 students.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
And actually, I want to introducing the next speaker.
Okay, thank you.
Is Mr. David Amos. He is actually the first instrumental music teacher at Patrick Henry back in 1969. He's a current community member, and is the director of the Tifereth Israel Community Orchestra, which operates in the Patrick Henry cluster.
Okay. Good morning. My name is David Amos. I've been involved in that area of Del Cerro, San Carlos, Lake Murray, and Allied Gardens for over 40 years. I was, as Matt explained, I was the first music director at Patrick Henry back in 1968. Was choral music and instrumental music combined, and from the beginning we were handicapped by the cafetorium, which was not really a full auditorium, a real opportunity to present music. There were many opportunities throughout the years that have been missed because of this lack of a decent auditorium that you can present music programs, chamber music, choral music, theater, dance, drama, and many, many other things. I'm currently involved with Tifereth Israel Community Orchestra, which is in San Carlos, and we will be committed to do our programs there. And I've talked to several other groups that would be very interested also in participating in this new auditorium, which we hope will take place in the community. There's a real need for this, and I would strongly support it. I'm a musician and a music activist both. And any questions you have for me? So anyway, my support is there, and we'll do.
When this building was built, when you were the first band director there, what was the intent of the original? Do you remember? I mean, the school was built rather quickly, wasn't it?
It was built quickly. It was going to be from people that came from Hoover High School in Crawford into the new Patrick Henry High School. We were only a 2-year high school the first year, and then it grew into the third year, the second year. And we were quite strong and dynamic in the music program from its inception, from the beginning. And there was always that lack. We've lacked inviting some music festivals that were a possibility. I thought of a chamber music series, which would be a great educational aid for the students that never really took place. Did I answer it with that?
Yeah, that's great. No, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sandy?
Janine Whitaker is going to speak.
Okay, we're not allowed to switch speakers like that. I'm sorry. Yes.
I figured you were tired of listening to Sandy.
No, never.
It's actually nice to talk about how to spend money versus how to cut money. I'm speaking on behalf of McKinley Elementary School, and we just wanted to make a point here that there was still a lot of projects that were committed to through Prop MM that have not been completed. They did a beautiful job adding 2 gorgeous new buildings to our campus. Unfortunately, the windows don't open, and they're wired for air conditioning, but there's no air conditioning there. So you've got a situation now where our 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade classes are sitting in baking ovens through most of the day. We've got teachers begging kindergartner classes to come in and read, where the kindergarten and 1st grade classes are air conditioned. So there's some exciting plans going on with Prop S. We really applaud you on it, but we really would like you to put some priority on some critical health and safety issues, and please get us air conditioning or some kind of cooling system in there. And we've really had some exciting meetings in our community about the future spending of Prop S. We brought in community leaders, groups, neighbors, teachers, children. We have some really exciting ideas, and we're really looking forward to working with the staff on how to improve our campus and bring some shade into our play field that has absolutely none right now. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Tom Rowe.
My name is Tom Rowe. I'm from the class of 66 from Crawford, and I'm also on the foundation, but I'm here as an individual and alumni, and I've been a volunteer at Crawford for 40 years, mostly with athletics, football, basketball, and I'm very glad to see that you're talking about improvements in with the athletic facilities. They're very needed, and improvements all over the campus is needed. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Ann Runge.
Good morning. My name is Ann Runge. I'm from Crawford High School, and I just would like to encourage further dialogue regarding the current proposal on the table that has come before us. In addition to merging 2 schools, there are issues that have come forward from other staff that would require longer time than were provided here, but would like to just make sure that there's going to be further dialogue involving parents that didn't have opportunity yet to sign up, and other members of the community in Crawford that truly would like to be involved in the discussion, such as the foundation, the alumni, and a lot of the staff that's on hiatus right now. And I would like to know if that will be, is this a set in stone issue? I know CCT was out yesterday regarding putting in a new building. We're putting in a new building, we're tearing it down. It's who's talking to who? I have concerns that we're going to put in a brand new building right in the middle of a spot where it's not been well thought out. So I guess that today would be my biggest concern, not to not go forward on the proposal, but when it comes time to merge these 2 projects, I know you put the Crawford Man down the ladder, but the CCTE projects are up top. We're impacted by both, and I hate to see a waste of money. And at any point in time, budgets or no budgets, would like to make sure that we are all on what's in the best interest for the entire community of Man and Crawford. Thank you.
Hazel Stepp.
Good morning. A procedure question, if I may.
What?
A procedural question?
Sure.
I would love to speak directly about the Gompers. Is that going to be pulled as a separate item and I can speak to it then rather than public commentary? Thank you.
Okay. Esther? Well, you know what, Mr. Stepp, I'm sorry. We're going to have a discussion, and what we decided we would do as a board is that we will let the public speak before we go into those discussions, and those discussions will be next. So if you don't mind, I will ask you to go ahead and speak now, okay? Esther, if you can wait just a minute. He's going to go ahead and speak now, please.
First I want to thank the board and Dr. Koba and Stuart for really pulling us all together to really do some very honest discussion. In the short time that I have here, I've got so much to say, but I've given you my document, and I ask that you really try to follow along with that. The following operational assumptions are, I think, extremely important for you to note as you begin your discussions. We have agreed that the students at Millennial Tech, 450, would be enrolled in the 9-10 year. We're also asking that when you look at the field, look at it as a high school SCIF field so that we can accommodate our high school arena. We're asking that putting the bungalows on our decomposed granite field, that it be a 1-year operation. That you then move all of that to the volleyball section that's listed as Section D in your plan. But let me get to the heart of it. We are in support of Scenario A. You have been briefed on those scenarios, but there's one piece of it that was not part of your briefing. We are disappointed that the site was not considered when we talked about the Site D being the one for the portables. We're really kind of disappointed that that was not part of the planning. Therefore, in spite of that, we reluctantly support A as the plan of best choice, considering the few choices we have. We're asking you to take a hard look at the state medical therapy unit and begin asking staff to move forward now to have that moved out as quickly as possible, so that if you're not going to build the additional buildings on Millennium, that be a site used for all of the portables well into the future. The bus turnaround, I think, is always going to be a notion for us to really roll against, because it doesn't serve our purpose. You're talking of putting the bus turnaround in an area where we have the expansion of our high school planned out. The last item before my time runs out, 13 bungalows. I want to speak to it because I've heard it several times now, and I'm a little disturbed by it. Those bungalows, pardon me, they were given to us under Prop 39. When that was done, we were not aware in any fashion that it was even considered as the location for Millennial Tech. It has been brought to our attention that those are supposedly a gift to us. They were not a gift. They were negotiated through Prop 39. And so part of me says, Prop 39 clearly declares for a charter school, when you're talking about space equivalency, that there is a requirement under 39 to give adequate facility space for a charter school. And so I really wanted to just kick that in the head and say, please, discount that.
Thank you. Esther O.
Good morning. My name is Esther, Principal Mann Middle School. I have come to speak to the fact that we do need to have a Mann Crawford complex as soon as possible rather than later. The reason is because there are so many things at Mann that do not work like they should because of the age of the building and the age of the facility itself. If you look at the handout that's being passed out, we can go through the buildings really quickly. We took some pictures just so you have an idea. The 200 building a number of years ago was condemned because the building was actually built on a land refill. So the soil movement has been occurring over time. The hallways are warped, and it's very difficult to maintain standards of cleanliness in that hallway. About 4 years ago, some people came out from the facilities department, walked under the building, and found out that the beams were caving in. So, somehow it was condemned and then it was uncondemned. The doors, because of the movement of the soil, have had to constantly be shaved just to maintain being able to open and close it. The windows get cracked constantly because of the building movement, and the walls have to be patched constantly because there are numerous cracks. It's always a case of whitewashing or window dressing that constantly goes on. The 600 building, the floor is uneven. As a matter of fact, I was there 2 weeks ago, and the inspector said to me, "You know this building is shifting." I said, "Yes, I know it's been shifting since I've been here 4 years ago." So people seem to be aware of what needs to be done for man, but for whatever reason, there's a constant delay. And I think that it is time for us to move forward and build the whole facility over, as opposed to continually doing a stopgap window washing experience that costs more money in the long run. The boys' PE, the floor drains get clogged constantly because the ground pipes break. Last week we had another break in the girls' bathroom. So it's constant flooding, constant maintenance, constant repair, constant paintings, and it's just a constant call to the facilities department. I'm very sure Mr. Koba and his team are sick and tired of hearing from us. So we would really like you to consider and build the Man Crawford Complex as soon as possible. This is Mr. Garibay. He is one of the parents of my SSC, and he can attest to the fact that we really do need a new facility. Any questions?
Thank you. Okay, so the first item that we'll take up is the CTE items, which is over at page 2. And I guess the question would be from Superintendent. It says identify 12. Are you asking us to have them develop all 12 of these, or you want us to pick 5 or 4? Or what is the
recommendation from our staff is that we approve the 12 proposals that have been sent to you. These have all been developed and submitted to our state, and it's my understanding that we are seeking approval of all 12. Cheryl, I see you saying it's not right. So this is just an information item today? 4, 5, 6,
we could take action, couldn't we?
So today, again, it's just information?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. That's fine.
Well, could we
go into the next
put our finger
item?
in the wind and find out how everybody feels about this?
No, because it's an action item on that particular day.
Okay, then can we talk about this?
I'm not understanding. Well, the conversation will take place on the 4th when I'm not understanding what you want to do today, Catherine.
May I speak?
Of course you can speak.
Okay. I would just, like to talk about all of these projects and the importance of vocational training that each one of these represent. There have been, I don't know that the board is aware of how much work really for each one of these represent. I think it's unfortunate that Ginger Eves is not here to talk about the process at each one of these high schools and how the decisions were made. If we are seeking information today on this, Sean, are you, or who is best to come up and talk to us about the process and how each of these programs were developed and
well, I think that needs to wait till the 4th. I don't want us...
This is information, Ms. Jackson.
It is information, but it's my understanding as well, okay, if the item is going to be an action item on the 4th.
This is information. I'm asking for information.
Now, as the board has asked that we have our meetings done appropriately, the appropriate thing to do, since this item has been agendized for the 4th, is to discuss it on the 4th.
No, it's action on the 4th. This is information.
The question that we asked earlier.
Okay,
what
I'm
is the
asking
purpose of this
information.
meeting today? And we had said that we were not going to call people up from the audience. As a board, we agreed that they would come up for public comment, but we would not call the staff back and forth.
Point of order,
Okay.
though, but that means the board, at a special meeting of the board, any of the topics that are on the agenda, the board should have the opportunity to discuss. Whether staff responds immediately or not is not relevant. They can respond to the next meeting. The reason that it's the first reading is so that each of us have an opportunity to speak. I believe that Catherine has a right to speak.
And she is speaking, but we had said that the staff would respond. The staff would not be coming back and forth up for board members to call staff up.
Okay, this is information, though, and so I'm not allowed to ask any questions. I'm only allowed to talk.
No, you can talk, and they can provide the answers back to us either at the next meeting or in writing prior to the next meeting. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. as long as you're up, I'd like to have information on how each one of these projects were developed and what period of time, how long people with the history is behind all of these. Not necessarily in extreme detail, but generally how this process works and that it didn't just jump out of anybody's head.
I think that's true of all the board members. Yes.
Just one thing I wanted to say to staff before the next meeting. I was also concerned on the Crawford. We kind of separating out, taking action on the CTE, and yet we're going to wait a while on the bigger picture, just to make sure that this decision, if we, and as one of the people pointed out, if we make a decision about the sustainable energy program, that it's not going to be something that's going to be in conflict or in the wrong place. So I'm just asking that staff, when we speak on the 4th about this, that would have information showing that it will fit either way, no matter what the decision is.
Okay, thank you. Any other board comments? Yes, Mr. Barrera.
Well, I guess it's really the big question that I'm going to have to make my decision on the 4th is where do we potentially see our $15 million match coming from?
Wouldn't that be nice to know now?
Principal would be there's right now, realistically, there's two sources. One would be a realignment of
No, wait a minute. How come he gets to have his questions answered
and he shouldn't
I
be
don't?
answering the question? You should provide the information to us in writing, please.
I actually, I'd like to make a motion that this is not the way we conduct this meeting at this time. I'd like to answer to Mr. Barrera's question and a brief synopsis from staff. I think that this is information, and that's what we're gathering right now. Our thoughts are focused. We're here. We're present. The way to conduct this in an intelligent way is to take advantage of the opportunities that are here in front of us in the people of these staff and these,
we had
this
agreed,
expertise.
Okay, now if the board is going to rescind, because the board had said we didn't want to call staff up to answer questions throughout the meeting, if it's the board pleasure, and that's fine with me, I don't mind. If it's the board pleasure that we say that it's okay for board members to call staff up during any kind of conversation to ask questions, then I'm okay if that motion is made and passed. Okay?
Okay.
That's my yes.
The issue is whether or not you call a special meeting, and then there is an activity of discussion between the board and staff. If there is no discussion between board and staff, there's no reason for the meeting. All we have to do is get a written report from the staff on their update. We have no opportunity to ask questions, as you're saying, because staff isn't going to be interfered with. So then we can put in writing our questions, and then we need to vote on the decision. The problem with that is, don't interrupt me. The problem with that is that the discussion of the board at this time, like a first reading, is a system of getting the information to staff about our concerns and giving interplay. If
you know what, I was going to help you out. Because this is not a meeting; it's a workshop. So therefore, we can feel free to ask those questions. And I step back because it is listed as a workshop today. Is that not correct?
Exactly.
Okay, if it's a workshop, then staff can come forth and ask whatever questions, because it wouldn't be down here; it would be upstairs in a room. We have access to them.
Mr. Barrera, do you mind, since I was, thank you, I appreciate the opportunity. And I think the staff can quickly give us, from CTE, can give us an answer on, I just want to know what the general process is for this career technical education process and how they emerged.
And Mrs. Nakamura, let the experts talk about this, but just to frame it a little bit for you, because I did have some discussion with Ginger Eves yesterday. This is on the 4th.
Louder.
This particular item is on the 4th of August agenda, but this is clearly a good forum to clarify. But I just want to set the table for you. They're prepared to respond today. They have a data package associated with the 4th of August, and your ultimate deadline is the 18th of September. Just so you understand where we're headed. With that, let me turn it over to them so they can respond to your questions.
Good morning, Superintendent. Good morning, board members. I'm Lynn McConville. I'm the program manager in the Office of College, Career, and Technical Education, and I have worked as the point of contact for the Prop 1D grant submissions up to this point. The process for collecting this data and coming up with the 12 proposed projects come from work with site administrators. They worked with their students and their community members. We did work with our career technical education teachers, our CTE advisory board, and in turn, Ginger Eves did put together some items that went to board members, and then she asked for individual meetings with each of the board members, and my understanding is that she did meet with Ms. Nakamura, Ms. Jackson, and Mr. Beck. Again, we started that process as early as January. We did some online surveys, site walkthroughs, and that's how we did develop those 12 proposed projects. Health and safety of our students came first. We also looked at innovative projects in addition to potential growth industries in the state of California.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I was just asking Stuart what's our thinking about where the potential $15 million match comes from.
Thank you, Mr. Pereira. There's two principal sources. One is a realignment of Prop S dollars, which is under the board purview, as written, and the other one is the State School Facilities Fund and realignment.
Okay, so realignment means money that was committed to a particular school site, changing up that mix at the school site, or do we mean actually shifting money from? Well, the board always has the ability to realign money throughout the program. If we look at project and program, you've got a great deal of discretion in that. Now, I don't advise that. I don't advise because it's a zero-sum game. You're taking away from one project, putting the other. But as Dr. Greer mentioned, things change. As it turns out that maybe we won't be building a Miramar. I'm not going to predict that one way or the other, but that's a potentiality. It could happen. Yeah. And that would free up some $30 million. Yeah. And then it is back to the discussion that we've been having about state school facilities funds. Again, we're talking about leftover Prop MM state school facilities funds.
And the state schools as well, you could say, that top line, the money that we're currently funding PPO with, you could say, well, we want to move aggressively with coming off that and moving that to the general fund to free up those dollars to come up with the $15 million. Now, this is the CTE decision really has two components. When should we get our applications in, and should we do that? And then the second discussion is how do we fund it? The immediate issue is let's get the applications in, and that'll give us room to maneuver in trying to figure out how we're going to come up with those matching funds. But it's a matching fund, and it's a great opportunity for the school district. Is that all?
Okay. Let me ask my question, Dr. John.
Sure, I'll go right
Okay,
my 2 minutes comes up.
My question is a couple of them. Number one, we always submit about 12, and they only select about 4, and they put in prioritized order according to the district.
Sean's saying that's not true.
Is that right? Please elaborate on that, please. I know we did the first 2 rounds, and we got about. Did we? Mm-hmm. Yes.
Hi, I'm Sean Loescher. I'm with the Office of College, Career, and Technical Education, and I focus on Proposition 1D projects. No, ma'am, that's inaccurate. On the first round, we submitted 8, of which we achieved 7.
Okay.
On the second round, we submitted 8, of which we achieved 8.
Okay.
However, what's important to note here is that the first 2 rounds represented the dispersal of grants across the state in the amount of $420 million. There's only $80 million left for the third round. So submitting 12 is a way of creating more competition among ourselves and increasing our chances, but it's a very slim chance that all 12 themselves would pass.
Okay.
And what we learned at Stanford yesterday was that this final round, because it has residual dollars, is a wide open opportunity for the larger districts with more resources. Quite frankly, it looks like the larger districts may be better suited to get more accepted because they're finding that the smaller districts are running out of matching funds or the ability to match. So we have nothing to lose, something to gain with the application of the 12.
Another question that was mentioned earlier, and it was something to the effect that they were out there at Patrick Henry now doing some work prior to these items even being submitted. Could you clarify?
The work has not started. We're in the design task force process right now, where we're putting the plan together for the execution of their regular Prop S projects, which whole site modernization, IT work.
That to do with this item here?
Absolutely not.
Thank you very much,
ma'am.
Mr. DeBeck. And this is a workshop, so you can,
Okay, don't go away. All right. If we talk about the funding that I'm hearing about, the technical education funding, matching funds for VOCAD, I'll call it. Okay, and then you talk about Prop S, and you talk about Prop MM, and you talk about state school building funds. You tell me when I'm wrong. I'll go through what I believe is a right or correct way this works. Prop MM, we spent on projects that were authorized under Prop MM. There is no reason to expand Prop MM outside the amounts that the voters voted for.
That's correct.
Secondly,
we're not authorized to do that.
All right. Prop MM then generated from the state school building funds as a sort of a match.
Absolutely.
But
there's a savings.
Those funds are just the same as general construction funds. They are not earmarked for any purpose. They're basically received by us as money we are entitled to because we did Prop MM.
That's correct.
So therefore, we cannot say that there's any leftover Prop MM funds. We only have a leftover match or a leftover
the bond.
All right, that's all I want to get at is Prop MM is gone and over.
Absolutely.
All right. So then we have a new pot of funds, which is the money that we get from the state building funds that we've earned through our own efforts. But it's not allocated for any purpose at all until the board decides what that's for.
Absolutely.
All right. The next thing is that there are offers from the state, for vocational ed facilities, which we have the opportunity to match.
That's correct.
Those are not Prop S activities. Those are new activities that are outside of Prop S.
That's correct.
That are okay with the state if they grant them.
That's correct.
So we say, okay, guys, we're on board. We want to do it. We're going to commit a certain amount of matching funds.
Right.
Those matching funds are not expended until we get the grant.
That's right.
The state. So therefore, we can't count on them be going to that project at all until the state match is met, or our match is.
There's precedent to go ahead and build the building and wait for the match, and most school districts can do that, and that's what we're doing.
But let me ask you this, and you just said that. Wait for the match means that you are assured that the grant comes through from the state for the facility, but you're not because it's a competitive grant.
Well, once they agree to give us the money, it's an agreement.
Well, I understand that. In other words, once you get the grant, you can spend that money on ours.
Right.
But in the process, we have already committed ours to the potential of that grant.
Sure.
So that's an encroachment on what I call.
Well, you're taking risk. If the 1D money doesn't show up, then we're out the money.
We're not out our $15 million though. That would still be in our bank. They're not going to come in and take that.
Well,
in other words, what you're saying then, you're going to divert money that is, I'll call it state building fund money, to the vocational project, whether the vocational project is funded or not?
No, I would never do that. Absolutely not.
So anytime we say we're going to apply for a grant from the state, what we're doing is we're putting earnest money aside in a reserve in case that grant is met. In the state granted to.
In the best of all worlds, that's what you'd want.
I have yet to see a time when we said, okay, let's take that money back out of the grant, out of that thing. What we do is we leave it lie until the next round of grants, okay? And so what I'm saying is, should the grants not be, these specialized grants not be received, where are we going next? Is that a part of our long-range planning, or is what happens is this?
No, sir, you're ahead of me on this.
Well, maybe I am. That's probably what I'm supposed to be.
Right. What all we're proposing today is to allow us to get the application in and meet the deadline next month, so we can get this application in, and then we have to have consideration as to where the grant money would come from. Mr. Barrera asked me what two sources there would be.
If I was in business, I'd set aside a reserve for a grant. Okay,
that'd be great.
Set the money aside out of the anticipated income from not the bond issue, because you can't use Prop S bond issue as the matching money.
Yes, you could.
Only if the projects were listed within
No,
Prop S.
if the board has great discretion in this. You have great discretion in this.
That's exactly why people won't pass bond issues around here. Okay.
It's written into the language of the bond.
You know what we said years ago, okay, and I'm going to go back and try and figure this out. We said years ago we weren't going to put forward bond issues unless they had specified projects within them. Prop MM was one of those. Wasn't Prop S also a set of special?
Absolutely.
But then how do you say we have flexibility?
Because it's written in the language, Mr. DeBeck.
Because
could you tell me where?
The projects were included.
There's I can't cite the statute, but what's in there that says that priorities change, the board has discretion to change the priorities and the order of the projects and so forth. And that's very early in the language, but it has to do with changing circumstances that Dr. Greer talked to.
So what you're saying is that Prop S does not specify projects.
Oh, no, I didn't say that. It has absolutely a whole list of...
But then we can change them if we want.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, that covenant that we had in Prop M doesn't exist.
It's
because we gave ourselves wiggle room.
You gave yourself wiggle room.
All right. And that might be a smart move from the point of view of operations, but it may not be a smart political move. I'll just make that comment.
Right.
All right? Because that very issue is why we had all the questions around Prop MM in the first place. People weren't going to vote for stuff unless they knew what they were voting for. In the case of Prop S, what we said is, here's a list of potential projects we're going to vote for. And if we change our mind, we get the right to do that. That's going to be a little bit iffy when the next bond issue comes around. If people aren't satisfied with our, I'll call it, forthright presentation of what Prop S meant. All right? I'm speaking from my own point of view, not for the board. What I'm saying is this needs to be really carefully thought out.
I would concur.
All right, now we go to the next phase, which is we all care about the possibilities of improving, I'll call it the facilities for technical education, delivering careers to kids. We didn't earmark money for that in Prop S, did we? Earmark a certain amount for that, or did we just say it's open?
We've had
Prop 1D, the first two rounds.
Prop what?
Prop 1D, the first two rounds, which were the governor's.
That's a state thing. I'm talking about our own proposition.
Right. No, where I'm going with this, Mr. DeBeck, is that Prop 1D came before Prop S. So we were able to write into the project lists specific career tech ed. So the sustainable technologies, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to point to that. Sustainable technologies at Scripps Ranch was a project written into Prop S. Where we are today is we're talking about the third round of Prop 1D, which is after Prop S. So there is no match from Prop S funds for round 3, but there is for rounds 1 and 2 because they came before the voters approved the project list. So they were written into the project lists. Okay, it is a timing issue.
What I get edgy over is this.
Yeah.
When you get matching money for bond issues like Prop M, or you get what I call state school building funds, I don't consider those a slush fund. I think those are monies that the board has to critically examine in terms of the priorities for future construction in the school district. It isn't like, it's whatever we decide to spend it on. It's what our long-range plans or our goals would be. All right? And in fact, it might even not include matching, because the only time you do that is let's say you have a plan to do what the state is going to support. Not us. You're not going to have that. It's not like somebody coming along and saying, we'll give you the money if you do what we want. We should want to do it in the first place.
You're correct. And at the time prior to Prop S going to the voters last November,
I'm trying to go somewhere.
Yeah. Okay.
And what my point is then is, where are all these projects in the pipeline on technical education or all? Do we have a set list, or we just wait until all of a sudden there's a grant available and then we apply for whatever the grant lets us apply for instead of planning in advance?
No, sir. We've got in our Fast Start projects, the bulk of the work we're doing in the first phase of Prop S, the bulk of the large projects are career tech and education and overcrowded relief grant projects. Those were started at the end of 2008. We came to the board for permission to spend $10 million in planning. We've been, and this is the Madison Auto Body, the Morris Auto Body, the Morris CTE projects. There's a body of that work that's underway even as we speak, and we moved aggressively to get this stuff out. So, in fact, this was the very, very first projects we started, and we wanted to take advantage of that grant money.
I know, but I have run into this problem where every time there's a grant, we run eagerly to grab it. Then we wonder why we did it because it didn't fit our long-range plans.
Well, I think this begs, the question that Dr. Evans had about strategic planning and so forth. But it's another subject.
Sorry, I wasn't here for that, but yeah, I think that's important.
Right.
I think we should have a list of projects that we anticipate supporting in the future and revise them annually so that we know that where we're going instead of just saying, oh, hey, somebody dangles some money in front of us, let's go. 2-for-1 money looks good, but it's not good if it's something you didn't want to do in the first place.
That's a point well taken.
I agree with the strategic planning issue. I think that there's a flaw in your thinking, Mr. DeBeck. These didn't originate from the grantor telling us these are the areas, particularly that they want per se, although they do have categories. These came from the schools themselves and their knowledge of their population and the existing programs and how all of this dovetails.
A lot of these are improvements to already existing sites.
Yeah.
A lot of the work on this work list are existing sites throughout the district that are going to have improvements. And the CTE folks can talk specifically to those at another time. But we will, we look forward to your guidance on whether we need to submit the applications.
Well, without going, there's a lot of discussion we need to talk about long-range planning, and especially in the arena of vocational education. And let me put it this way: how many auto shops were there in the district before Prop MM? A lot.
I don't recollect, sir. I don't have that data.
But every school would say, "Okay, we want our auto shop." The question would be, I'm talking as a district with a policy of preparing kids for a career. Would it be better to have let's say a state-of-the-art, perfect auto shop with the current equipment and everything in one place that people committed to going to, so they were technicians and they walked out to a high-paying jobs, or a little patchwork piece of auto shops scattered throughout the school district? See, if you ask the sites, they'll ask for the patchwork because that's the way they look at life. They look at themselves. They don't look at the long-range planning that takes to get to the career objective that we might have for our district. That's the difference between an ROC and a high school, okay? And the question is, do we believe as an organization or as a professional group of educators planning around the preparation of career people, do we believe in sampling vocational training in a lot of schools, or do we believe that we need to put a high-quality output into the industry? And that would be an example of a debate we ought to be having as a board.
Mr. DeBeck, prior to your arrival, what we had asked the staff, we said that the board did approve for us to do a strategic look, and I called it the Evans study, over the next couple of months. And then the question became, these items that were on here, what do we really have to take care of right now? Because what you just said is very important. We have to have some type of plan rather than doing bits and pieces here and there. So, but that item did come up earlier. Superintendent Greer.
Yeah, this is just try to be real quick with it. Mr. Beck is right. Philosophically, I think the board needs to spend more time talking about this whole idea of multiple pathways and vocational technical education. And I'm going to share this with you, and this will be very upsetting to some people, but it is how I feel. I have seen in our school district here and other school districts where I've worked, I've gone out to different vocational training programs, and I've said to the teachers there, tell me what percentage, or just give me a how many number of your students that have gone through this program as seniors end up going into this field of work, either to going from or either leaving and going to a community college and going on into a meaningful career of work. And I've become very concerned that you hear 5 kids, you hear 1 kid, you hear 3 kids, and we're spending an inordinate amount of money as adults, in my opinion, to have programs that we think kids like and that get them to school. And maybe if that's what your objective is with vocational technical education, okay, you've achieved that objective. But the real multiple pathways that lead to meaningful jobs, like health career programs, etc., I'm not sure that we are, as a staff or perhaps as an organization, are placing enough emphasis on those areas like green technology, areas that will really provide continuing education for kids. Now, this idea of having 5 auto tech shops, or like the district I came out of in North Carolina before I came here, we had something that was called a vocational center. And we had several that were located strategically in different areas. And so if I wanted to take an auto mechanics course, for example, I might spend half a day in my high school and the other half of the day at the tech center. Now, again, you got into issues that you would want to talk about, like transportation. So anyway, there's a lot to talk about here, and I think what the staff is trying to do is we're following and doing kind of what we've always done. We don't have enough money to do what we would like to do. Here's a state matching grant where we can get half of those dollars. And so we've done a nice job, I think, going out and talking with the people in our schools, doing bottom-up having bottom-up discussions, getting feedback from our teachers, from our students, and our parents. So now we're coming to you, and perhaps maybe what we should be doing is coming to you first, and then going out. And I think that's what I hear from Mr. DeBeck. So thank you.
And certainly, Ms. Ward, and Superintendent, the demographic study that the board had wanted to do, has that been agendized yet? Sort of looking at that. September 1st, that's right. Okay, I just couldn't remember, kind of foggy. Okay, so certainly, thank you very much. Then you want to comment on this one?
Yes. Yeah, 2 quick questions. One is the list of 12 projects here. If we got the grant, so the $15 million, and then we matched it with the $15 million, is that $30 million pay for all 12 projects?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And then the second quick question is, the McKinley folks talked about that the air conditioning was a commitment made under Prop MM. Do we have outstanding commitments that we have not fulfilled from Prop MM? Right.
McKinley's scheduled to get it. Yeah.
I don't know if we could answer that question directly or immediately. The way I would frame that response is that when the ICOC for Prop MM was disbanded in February, their responsibility was to have ensured and overseeing the expenditure of all the dollars. And the way it was relayed to me, the only one major construction project not completed was the Salk Elementary School because of the environmental issues. So I can't go back over the 10 years and tell you whether or not that we added or deleted or did not do a specific project.
Is that something that you could go and find information?
I couldn't tell you, sir, without going back to the...
Can I throw a little light on this?
Sure.
It's not McKinley, but for me it's always been Cherokee Point, which is in the same boat.
Yeah,
that the air conditioning, that what happened was the school was designed for air conditioning, and then I think unbeknownst to the board, it was value engineered out. And so the engineering, and when you have air conditioning, you want sealed windows, which I think we all understand. And then but the air conditioning was removed. Now, under Proposition S, one of the really strong thrusts that we had, and one of the reasons I pushed for it, although, I live on a very hot side of the district, so it's important to me, but our urban core, McKinley, Cherokee Point, those urban areas are very, very warm, and I believe they're in the zone to receive air conditioning under Proposition S. So that particular item has already, I would hope, and please staff if you would correct me, McKinley is one of the schools slated to get air conditioning. I mean, I know I made it a priority for those schools that can't open their darn windows. They need air conditioning. And I would put them ahead of schools that that can open their windows.
I will get back to the board on this particular subject and tell you where we are with that. There are a number of schools that have infrastructure in place put in during Prop MM that were never put in. The equipment never followed it, and it's a very complicated issue, and it had to do with some board decisions as well on the use of air conditioning in the district and energy. So there's a broader discussion on this subject that happened back then. I wasn't privy to that. I wasn't here at the time, so I don't know.
Mr. Markey, I was privy to that.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I don't think the board really knew at that point in time. I mean, it was... that we
Anyways,
were,
and this issue, I will certainly get back on McKinley. It's on my list to do. It's on my to-do list, and I'll get back.
And
anyway.
I just think, obviously the general point is if we made commitments under Prop MM that we did not fulfill, it seems that, at least the discussion should be had that a priority for our state matching funds from Prop MM is to fulfill those commitments. So, but it sounds, so I don't know the degree to which you can go back and look at, do we have outstanding commitments?
Well, I've got folks on my staff that have historical knowledge of the subject, so I'm going to have to defer to them.
And I think we want also hard information, not just historical knowledge, because I know when he's talking to REC that said that the board, we did not, under Prop MM, agree not to build a middle school in the Logan area. What we asked the staff to do was to go back and find a different location, and then it disappeared. So I want to make sure that when the staff comes back to things that we may not have done under Prop MM, that they have not just verbal historical data, but some written data.
Very well.
But we also, you need to follow that in that we also did, contradicting ourselves as a board, agree to take that money from Logan and spend it on other criteria that were being used. I'm pretty well
and we need
remember
to find
that conversation.
I don't remember that conversation.
So if we've already blown that money and made that decision, that was a decision made.
Specifically, continually throughout the process, when we set aside money for the Jonas Salk Elementary School, I asked, why are we setting aside money for the Logan Middle School?
I think because the board made the decision,
and the board,
but we have
the board
those
had
decisions.
not made a decision for that. It just disappeared. And,
I disagree
so we need to
with
find
you.
out why. Well, we can disagree. That's fine.
Let's
Let's
find
go
out
to
the
the next
facts.
item. The next item up, and you're going to be up here in just a minute, is the is the Millennia Tech Gompers, and I would ask you to tell us exactly what it is that you need from us today. But before you get started, I want to share a couple of other items with the rest of the board, my clarification of some things.
Would you like me to stay at the dais, or would you like me to sit down?
It's up to you. You just need to go over those options you want us to take. Okay, and so certainly, the question is, number one, what is it you want us to do? Please explain those options to us again, so we know which options we want to take. And I just wanted to share that the joint use field issue is an issue that this board has to deal with the city of San Diego, because we voted for it in Prop S. The board has to take action to say that it is not going to be part of Prop S items. The land that is there is leased property, so the fact is that field probably would not have been in the lease in the next year, because the community had to talk about what they wanted in that joint use area. Councilmember Young, who oversees that area, would have to be able to commit to maintaining whatever we put in that field. So it's not that we can just decide as a district we want to put something in the field, because the city has to have the funds to be able to maintain that. And I did speak with him briefly about that, because he needs to be part of this conversation as well.
Very well. The first decision I would like the board to reach is if they want to persist with the language in the Proposition S ballot initiative, which was a joint use field at the Gompers site. And and I understand that agreement calls for a 2-acre grass field on the 6-acre DG site. And in this agreement, we would install that turf. We've got about $660,000 in construction money, plus an additional amount for design and so forth, and fees and everything to do that. That's in the ballot initiative.
For 2 acres?
That's the agreement with the city is 2-acre lots, $660,000. This involves scraping the surface of the soil 18 inches down.
We put 5 acres in at Hearst Elementary for $500,000.
Well, the agreement that what we've got planned for this site, we've got $12 million in Prop S. We've got $12 million in Prop S. We've got about 12 projects, and that comes down to about $670,000 worth of construction work. So for over 2 acres. So the idea would be the city doesn't want to get anything smaller than an acre and a half, and they don't like to get too much bigger than 2 acres.
Please. I have to rely on the things I've been reading.
Yes, sir.
I saw one thing not too long ago was about digging down and getting all the rocks.
Right.
Okay. Then I saw another thing about after that, putting in some kind of irrigation system.
Well, if we're going to have grass, we need the irrigation system.
One or the other. Okay. And then there was some kind of cost within the irrigation thing about removing rocks again, caused by the excavation deeper for the irrigation system. Somehow I think the strategy or the sequencing of that operation is backwards, and I don't know where it all is, but it seems to me like if you're going to dig up and put in a water, sprinkler system, you're going to uncover a lot of rocks. Okay. Then you stub in all the stuff you want, and then you may have, I don't care how you mark it. You can mark it with sticks or with plastic rods. I don't care. So now you got where the risers would be, and you don't want to have them torn out by the going through and so redoing the rock selection process. Somehow there's got to be a way where we do it all. You get the rocks last.
Well, we try to be as most efficient as we can in this process, Mr. Beck.
But I didn't see that. I saw two separate documents, and both of them had costs, and one of them had doing one before the other, and they were backwards.
Right. I'll have to do the research. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Somehow we ought to be able to say, okay, maybe the sprinkler company install the sprinklers and remove the rocks, so one single bid for the whole damn job. I don't know.
Right. In this particular case, we don't have any detailed planning on this. This is just a
it just didn't look to me like scoping it was right.
Very well.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Nakamura?
Yeah, okay. You had, when you were talking about the athletic field before, my notes show a $4.5 million for AstroTurf.
Well,
where does that number come from?
Okay.
Joint use grass is $675.
We need to bifurcate this discussion into two areas. One is if we're going to go ahead with a joint use agreement as written in the bond, that calls for a joint use with the City of San Diego for 2 acres of grass field, of which I've got $670,000 in construction money set aside.
Okay.
On top of that, I've got money for planning and all this other business. That's a decision the board has to make. Do we want to just do that? If that's what the board wants to do, then we will persist with that, and that's what we'll do. The second choice is we come into the A, B, and C choices. A, B, and C, A and B especially, are dependent on deviating from that agreement with the city. And we're coming into a shared use philosophy between Gompers and Millennial. And again, if I may.
Yeah.
Test. What we have is a scheme, and it's in your drawings for A, which is we're going to put a playing field down to the south, a baseball field to that directs to the northeast, a softball field that directs to the southwest.
Now you're showing with your hands the use of the entire field. That's a 6-acre field. You're talking about 2 acres. So you're talking about really filling in 1/3 of that lot.
Well, if we just went to the city, right? If we just stayed with the city agreement, any place on this field you could put 2-acre improvement on.
Okay.
But we would logically put it down to the south because the community would have access to it easier and along the sidewalk and so forth. Now, the other option, which is option A in your folder, which is an improved field here, which can be used for a variety of things, soccer and football and field hockey and whatever, and a baseball field pointing to the northeast, softball field pointing to the southwest, a 15,000 square foot building, 4 portables temporarily located here, and with the remainder of the portables located up on this upper elevation. That whole scheme to do all this work would come in around about $13.5 million because $7.5 million of that fee would be for this building. Right. Now that's A.
So for proposal A, we get 4 portables immediately on the field, 11 on the turnaround site? Well,
The rest of them up here.
and then build the building, and that the price tag for all this is $13.5.
Right, and you get your field improvements.
And
And
you
that's
get-
contingent upon not getting into an agreement with the city.
And that's with a joint use field, shared use.
Shared use with Gompers and Millennial.
2 from column B,
Yes, sir.
1 from column C.
Why wouldn't the soccer field function as the joint use field with the city? Yeah.
Well, that's one of the possibilities that we could break that out. Now, what happens when you enter in that with the city? They look at these high school sites differently than they look at other sites because the high school uses these at a higher rate, and then they don't like to enter into those agreements because they don't have access to the field.
But if we had that discussion with the city,
that's a possibility.
Okay.
You know, they could say, well, in this case, we'll waive that. But typically, what they don't like to do is enter into joint use agreements with high schools.
But it's adjacent to a park anyway, right?
Exactly.
Well, you've got a large park right
So
here.
why can't you incorporate some of that as a joint use? Joint use means they got some and we got some.
The discussion
Well, this is a sticky subject because this is a designated city park, and you have to have a whole voter referendum that the whole city of San Diego votes on whether they want to abandon that and get into another use for that park. That's, it's a possibility. Somebody would have to champion that, and would have to get it on the ballot initiative, and would have to do that. But right now, it's not an easy thing to do.
But he didn't mean the park. He meant
the soccer field.
Yeah, but at the park.
No, I'm just
on the DG field.
Exactly. If we take the bottom third of the DG field, plant grass on it, and then use it for soccer. I mean, it seems to me like that could satisfy our needs.
Now here's
exactly.
Yeah. Here's the agreement. That's a great possibility. One of the issues that you involve, of course, this is grass. It needs to be watered. It has to be maintained. We don't have a great history with that. And that's a city's on the hook to do that. Our vision was this would be artificial turf throughout.
But I'm sorry, Mr. Dwight. Just 2 points on that. One is, if we're going to pursue a joint use, field with the city under any circumstance, it sounds like the agreement was that they would maintain the site.
They maintain the maintenance of the grass field.
Yeah.
We install it.
Right.
We pay for the installation.
Right.
They're on the hook for the water and the maintenance.
So
just like they are in this site.
Right. So so this question of the joint use it seems like if the city has the resources to commit to maintain the field, then it makes sense for us to continue to pursue the conversation around a joint use field. If the city can't commit those resources, then I think we do have to step back and say, can we continue to commit to a joint use project when the city can't come through on their part of the deal?
Have we had those conversations at all?
We haven't had those conversations.
We haven't had this conversation. One of the issues was always been that this. We wanted to maintain, or there's members of the community that wanted to maintain a tremendous amount of flexibility with the use of the DG field.
Yeah.
That means once you're into an agreement with the city on this, it's an agreement with the city. And if you wanted to come back in the future and put a football stadium in here, if you wanted to do something else, you've got an agreement with the city. So this is really a broader context of how you want to encumber the field.
Yeah.
I
think the only point that I'm making there is it sounds like Plan A does not limit our ability to continue this conversation with the city.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
But this is a Plan 1AC.
Yeah, I got you.
So this is another iteration on Plan 1A.
The question, if we were talking about putting artificial turf on the field, and you're talking, I would assume, Stuart, for the soccer field as well as the baseball.
Well, the soccer field would be part of that. I would envision that as that 2 acre, 1/3 of it would be the soccer.
Okay.
And north of that would be baseball.
But the grass part of the baseball and softball would be turf or grass?
Our vision was artificial turf.
Okay. So my only question is the cost of artificial turf for that site included in your $13.5 million?
Yes, artificial would be artificial for everything.
Okay.
And this is the most expensive of all the three options. We get one of the, and I'm really pitching myself, construction of a building. My God, we've got 2,500 portable classrooms in the district. We don't need any portable classrooms. If there's any way we can see to it to build a great facility on this site for the future and the long term, then we figure out how to build that. But that's my advocacy.
And Plan A assumes removing the 4 portables within 32 months.
Right. I can't hit that 12-month target. I can try to it. I can try my best, but that's a tough one to hit because I'm going to be in it for a year. And then I've got another several hundred students coming. We want to get them up to this location and into this building as soon as possible. But our estimate is going to take 32 months at least to build out this building. I'll commit to 32 months.
And after we build the building, what happens to those 11 portables up there?
They would remain.
They would remain.
Well, we'd have to take a look at them. Who knows what the population of this is? We may want to return that to another use. And that'd be a discussion for further on. But these are going to be that's a great location.
Yeah,
it can serve both campuses.
A significant amount of money to move them, right?
Right.
So unless we have a use for them someplace else, they're either they stay shuttered or we find a use for them.
Or we find a use for them someplace else. But right now, this is a DG area. It's used for volleyball or other athletic events.
Why are we putting 11 portables up there?
We need. Well, we're back to this again. This area was where we were going to build that new structure.
Yeah.
Now, Plan B, and we'll explain this.
Okay.
If we don't build this structure, we get all the athletic improvements, we get 4 portables here, and we build out that little village of portables where that building was going to go.
Yeah, my question is, if we're going to build a building long term, why do we also need the 11 portables?
Because the students are coming before the building.
You have to put the kids in someplace.
The students come before the building.
But we will need the. Yeah,
the student population increases faster than I can construct a building.
I think the question he's asking is why they're not removed once the building is built.
Because it costs money to do that.
We eventually have all permanent.
Well, we can move in that direction.
Because
we're
assuming in the time it would take to build the building, the student population of Millennial Tech is going to move beyond the need for the 4 portables, and we're going to need 15 additional portables.
We're going to be moving into the 12 classrooms that are here. The 12 classrooms, the 600 seat classrooms, and also we want to get rid of these portables here because they're old and decrepit. So it's a demographic juggling act here. Yes, sir.
It just looks to me like this is turning out to be another Man Crawford complex. It's just not master planned. It's like, okay, we got a place down here for 12 classrooms. Nobody can tell me what the final complex would look like if we considered it ideal use of the whole place. I'll call it the whole complex of Gompers,
Millennial Tech,
Wright Brothers, whatever you want to call all that land, including our spur of land that runs over to Fairmont or wherever it is. It seems to me like, in order to make plans for, like the school we plunked in there, it's okay, we should at least have a master plan for the entire site. And if you build, let's say, 12 classrooms where you show in this option A,
sure,
then my belief is that you're going to end up having to tear down all of what is the existing Millennium Tech or Wright Brothers old site because it's obsolete. It isn't designed for what it's currently used for. It's not even well planned for the kind of school it currently is. It's a leftover from a past.
Well, your assessment is highly accurate, and you know that, Mr. Beck, if I could continue, the portable classrooms that we do have at Millennial are honestly beyond their service life, and that there will have to be consideration in the future for other resources in there if we want to develop it. What we're going to do is we're going to come at this with a joint task force of both sites. And to address the long-term master plan.
Okay. Well, all right. But anyway, so let me go back to at least one of the questions that I had before I got to this. First of all, I don't like the idea of building stuff because the land is vacant and not having a master plan for the site.
Very well.
Okay, that's my impression. The board can vote for whatever they want. But then I want to go to this concept of as I understand it, our standard construction for softball and baseball is to have a artificial turf.
That's what we've been doing.
Kind of green around the diamonds.
Right.
Okay. And so if we're already on that mode, because I'm assuming we understand the reason for doing artificial turf is a lower maintenance cost, less water, all that stuff.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Then if we're going to plan out I'll call it the soccer field, or we're going to plan out joint use, it seems to me like we haven't even got a policy on joint use for artificial turf. I'm not aware of that. Let me look at it this way. If you say that soccer field down there is going to be joint use, and the rest of our facilities are going to be there, it's joint use the rest of the facilities, because you're not going to have a fence saying to the community, you can't come use the baseball diamond, right?
That would be a fair assessment, but I'm not.
That's bad public policy.
It'd be awkward.
Well, it'd be bad public policy because they paid for it, they ought to be able to use it. So the reason we had joint use agreements with the city is to joint to lay off the cost of the construction or to lay off the cost of the maintenance. So why don't we have some kind of a deal in our new joint use around policies with artificial turf? In lieu of water and all the maintenance, you have some kind of sinking fund for replacing the artificial turf. In other words, why shouldn't our agreements with the city be, we'll joint use this whole doggone place, okay? And you're going to only deal with, I'll call it 2 acres. And what would the 2 acres cost to maintain? Plunk that money into the replacement fund for the artificial turf for the entire area. I could work this out. I honestly believe they'd get more bang. Tony would say, rah, 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 look at all this 6 acres I got for joint use, and all I had to pay is the maintenance of a 2-acre site. Let's do it. Okay? And so he could march around with signs saying, look what I did, and so that'd be fine. But the point is, if we start cutting this all up into little pieces, it's never going to have any joint use. We need to work out a policy about joint use and artificial turf.
Yes, sir.
With the city. Period. Before we do any of that.
I agree. And the other item that is here, and I asked the staff, and I haven't seen it yet, is we have, I think you said 12 joint use items in Prop S. Okay, and I think the board needs to be aware that if we're going to invest a lot of money in one of those joint use, how does it look for the rest of those joint use items? Because if you have $12 million and you say you're going to spend, about
I believe we forwarded that to the board office.
Okay, maybe I just didn't get through all my paperwork to find it yet.
Very well.
But the question, cause I think the board needs to be very much aware of all of those joint use agreements, and it's about $1 million for each. And what happens when we build out one and we spend the extra funds for one when we know we've got 12 others that we're going to have to look at?
Well, there is a precedent issue there.
Okay.
So, anyways, into B, would you like to hear B, the strategy for B?
Yeah, I just want to, before we go to B, so A, just looking at the elements of A.
There's 2 phases. There's an early phase and there's a later phase. And
what's the later phase?
Well, later phase is when we build out the complete site. In the early years, we have to get the 4 portables in there, so they're going to encumber the field, so we can't put the baseball in and so forth. But that's just technical.
I got you. Yeah, the only issue that I have with A is on the scheme here is the part D, which is preparing this site for 11 future portables.
Right. They go up on the hill. There's a hill there. There's a 10-foot slope, and it's up on the top of the hill.
And even that, grading it or paving it or whatever we need to do even that might make sense. It's just what I haven't heard a clear argument for yet is why we need to put 11 new portables in that section, given that we would be building the new building.
It's a sequencing issue, sir. The people come before the new building gets built, so I have to put them temporarily someplace so they can get into the other building.
One of the issues, I was out at the site yesterday, and I know that you've had this discussion, but I'd like to get a sense of one issue that the Gompers folks have raised is the portables directly above the DG field. there are a number of portables there. And no, I'm sorry. Keep going. Look at where you're going to put look. That's where you're going to put the new portables, correct? Okay, so the portables right above that.
But they're temporary.
These.
So those aren't permanent. Those are the forward.
No, I'm not talking about just 4. I'm talking about
These are existing portables. Yeah. They hold landscaping equipment. They've got some academic support issues in there. There's 2 of them that are they're okay at best, and the scheme is to demolish these because they're well beyond their service life, as well as these other 3.
So I guess the question that the Gompers folks were raising is, why can't those existing portables be either the storage stuff is moved out, we renovate them, but why couldn't those...
It's an issue of certifying old, bad stuff. It's throwing good money after bad. I mean, these are in terrible condition. I mean, they're beyond their service life. And it's not my technical advice to do that. They're in horrible condition.
Okay. And so it's, again, what I just keep coming to, I mean, I can support, but what I'm going to continue to have questions, and I get the sequencing, but I want to actually see how that plays out before we just go ahead and put 11
Absolutely, we can do the math. Now, again, I'm going to make a comment. This strategy was developed since last Thursday.
Yeah.
So it's 4 days old. So this is a scheme of maneuver. It's an idea. It's not the full detailed plan.
Yeah.
I think it's a win-win, and I think the Gompers folks would agree to a win-win, as well as a millennial on this one. This involves $13 million because we get the big building. That's the issue. The only difference between A and B is the B doesn't get the building.
I understand.
The $13 million.
Yeah.
And then I put all the portables where the building's set.
It's going to go.
Yeah.
Which would pay for this. Which would actually pay for the field, right?
Right.
If we did it that way.
Well,
so that would
truthfully, in my mind, the students would best benefit from artificial turf soccer field and artificial turf baseball fields. That's what in the best interest of the students of our district, regardless of what school they go to.
Yeah.
If we build this...
Say that again. I hear this. Say
in the best interest of the students at both these sites is to build artificial turf soccer field, 2 baseball fields. That's the best interest of the students.
Rather than building a new building?
The building is up to the board's discretion on what if they want to spend that.
Are you saying that it's better to put students in portables than it is to build them a building?
No, absolutely not.
Artificial turf?
No, I was just talking about...
Clarify that, because that's what you said.
Ms. Jackson, what I was saying was that for the football, for this DG field, the best of all worlds is artificial turf.
Okay.
Right. That's in the best interest of everybody.
Trying to get the buildings for the students.
The building, my Lord, I'm trying to get rid of portables throughout the district. We've got 2,400 of these things that are ticking away that I need to get rid of.
Yeah. So just to clarify, because the same thing Mr. Brewer is saying, we have those 11 portables over there while we're constructing this 12-classroom building. So my thought, logically, would be you have them in those 11 classrooms, you're working on the building is finished, and you move them over to the 12-classroom building, and then you don't need the other portables, unless you decide to increase enrollment even further.
If enrollments change at either site...
Well, it wouldn't have gone up because there wasn't any space for it while they were building.
Right.
So it would just be you'd have the new building, and if you wanted to bring in more, you would keep some of the portables.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, but theoretically, the building replaces the portables.
In theory, right.
Okay.
I have a question regarding what are the portables that have been certified for this site? Now, in this district, there are portables, and then there are portables. The portables for example, at EBS that we used were pretty darn nice. I know a number of classrooms, building buildings that were kids in buildings that were simply not. They'd rather have those portables because they're air conditioned. They're far more comfortable. They've got more storage. They're in better condition than some of the buildings. So saying that we're going to put kids in portables is not necessarily, especially if they're nice ones. But what kind of portables do we have going on there? Excuse me, please don't interrupt, Ms. Jackson. It's what type of portables have been certified? Are these which we paid to have certified? Are these our grade A certified portables, or are these just so, not so good on their way out portables.
The four portables,
Ecolocatables and portables.
four portables that would go over to the Gompers DG field would be the current certified air-conditioned portables.
So these are already air-conditioned, they're already in good shape?
Yes, that's right.
So these are Class A portables?
Yes, they would be.
Okay, so these aren't run-down, tired?
That's right. And I wanted to come back around. The 11 portables that would come to this site, ultimately, I think they're only there long enough to satisfy need.
Right.
Okay. Once we have built a permanent structure or committed to permanent portables, that's all they're there for. The only other reason why they would stay would be if we needed them for swing space and Prop S, because both these schools will probably have to vacate a couple of classroom structures in order to do some construction in them.
That's true.
But the whole idea was working closely with the Gompers leadership to put 4 portables on the site this year. If you, the board, agree to a permanent structure, then we move the other 7 over there, have a total of 11, only there long enough to absorb the 400 kids that are the growth of Millennial Tech. And then we ask ourselves, okay, we're done with the permanent structure. Is there additional need? If there's not, I think you have to move the portables.
It's a total of 11, so you don't
Total of 11.
Yeah, I got you.
Yes.
Okay, but is that... I get a lot of problems with the terms we use, okay?
Right.
I think of the newest version of temporary housing for kids as being relocatables. That is, they're buildings you can pick up and move, and they're like a modular package that you can move.
That's the word I was looking for.
Then
modular.
we had the old 1950s portables, which were really portable. They were built on site.
Bungalows.
Bungalows, and they couldn't be. They were. The idea was they were removable, but they really weren't. They weren't a package. They were basically tear them apart, pull them apart, reconstruct them on a new site. Now we got it. Well, I don't ever want to have those again.
Yeah, I think that's where Stu wants to go with getting rid of those in the district.
Relocatable, they don't.
Right.
I think we ought to have that term straight.
Right.
You're right. I don't want to use.
So these are relocatables?
These would be certified relocatables.
Modular, air-conditioned.
Modular, air-conditioned.
That's what we
state-of-the-art relocatables.
Yeah. We are getting out of the business of maintaining 50-year-old beyond economic repair structures. And if schedules and funding permit...
They were stick-built. They were all different. They didn't even have a subfloor that could be lifted without being supported extra by all kinds of special beams and stuff.
I was at a 50-year-old one.
Right.
I'm with you, Mr. DeBeck. I was at a 50-year-old one last week at Central. It's terrible.
Yeah,
we need to get rid of it.
Those aren't what we're talking about.
But I do think where we're going with this conversation is that we're trying to determine how best to use a 6-acre field. We wanted to have an advisory group come together to do some significant master planning. Our run to today was built on the need to get your concurrence for those 4 relocatables to come over to Gompers to accommodate the growth. I think we've learned a lot in the last 7 days or so about needs. This is an unusual site, and I admitted to Vince Riverall and to Cecil Stepp, we kind of backed into this one because we did not have a campus like this elsewhere in the district, where we have a vibrant, growing charter school presence right next to a vibrant, growing district magnet presence. And I will tell you, I think we've all learned our lessons about how to communicate and work with each other in this regard. I do think we need to go out of this meeting today with at least an acceptance and agreement from you all to move 4 portables over there, because that's the immediate need. But I do think the conversation about what we can do with the city, with a soccer field, what we could do joint use, shared use, I think that's a wide open discussion. But at the end of the day, I'd like us all to believe that the right thing for these kids, all the kids on this campus, is to make the most out of maybe synthetic turf fields with whatever we can do, with whatever funding, but let's have the city part of the conversation, let's have the 2 schools part of the conversation, and come back and agree what is it that we want to do for the good of the kids and of the community.
Okay. Okay, board members.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to move that we move forward with Plan A, that we include in that, immediately beginning or resuming the discussions with the city, but that we go ahead and move forward with Plan A.
I'll second that.
Okay, any more board discussion? Okay. That passes 5-0. Okay. Okay, next item.
Nice work, staff, and nice work, Gompers. Thank you.
Yes, it's been a lot of time, so thank you on both parts.
Yeah.
The next item that is on the
Henry, I think.
My sheet, my page 3 here.
Yeah.
I do think, so let me just clarify this with the board members and Mr. Markey, and that was that given that we're going to be discussing on September 1st, the beginning looking at a comprehensive demographic study of the district and our schools, that some of these items, the next few items, Mann, Crawford, I think that out of that you wanted to talk about Patrick Henry, but I thought that, and so the question is, out of all of those, can all of those wait, or is that just that you need to pull that one for us to discuss now? And again, board, Mr. DeBeck, you weren't here, but the question was that some of these items we needed to have a more comprehensive district look, and the board had asked that we do what we call the Evans study, that look at the demographics, where our schools are located, and how we need to improve. And so rather than doing these items here separately now, that we would do that on September 1st.
Let's call it the San Diego Unified Study, please.
Oh, sure. Okay. All right. The San Diego Unified Schools Study.
With certain.
Yes.
Well, why don't you just call it a long-range facility plan?
Okay.
Certainly with.
There you go, John.
With your, respect to everybody's time, I would highly recommend that we take up the Henry High School project, because that project. We're doing the site planning right now.
Well, I'll share my comments first, and then we'll go around. I can't support that. We have a magnet school, Valencia Park, that's a magnet performing arts school that doesn't have a performing art area, and they, again, that's fine. They again, when you have certain leadership, and I guess my point would be that before we start doing one performance arts theater, that we look at the comprehensive plan to see where it's best to put a performing arts theater, and not to just start putting them at various school sites, because then what happens is we start piecemealing again, which is why I think this is best done. It was done as the entire project with everything else. Okay, Mr.
Understood.
Nakamura.
Yeah, we've had conversations today about being true to Prop MM and going back and looking at this. This auditorium, this isn't an auditorium, it's a cafetorium. It's like what you see in an elementary school. This is a 2,400 student high school. It's never had an auditorium. The building was built very hastily in the 1960s to accommodate Hoover and Crawford. They don't have an auditorium. I mean, it is the most pathetic structure for a high school. It is of any high school, and we've had this certified during the long-range facilities plan. This is the worst space. It's not a performing arts center that we're talking about here. It is the worst space in the district for any high school, and I think part of that is because it's just drifted along and not. We haven't had leadership at this school for 40 years because the performing arts space or the auditorium or whatever is so god-awful, nobody stays for very long. It is something that was promised, I think, when the school was built, that it would do better by it. It was promised, I'm sure, in Prop MM. It should have happened in Prop MM. This is 40 years overdue, and if you look at the photographs, it's the same as what's at an elementary school. All they're asking for, the Performing Arts Center, I think that's a misnomer. This is an auditorium. It's trying to, if we get the CTE money possibility, that it would, maybe, work with the engineering program that's been there in order to work on the electrical and the design. The kids have worked on this project over a year. Over the last year with the engineering program, it's working hand in hand, and all they're asking for is to have what everybody else in the district already's got. Every high school's already got it.
Mr. DeBeck and then Dr. Evans.
Well, I'm not even going to try to go back to the past, but it seems to me that any school district worth of salt would understand that every high school, comprehensive high school, has a certain basic needs for facilities. And to have a high school without an auditorium, and you can call it whatever you want, performing arts is just sexy. That's the way we use all these terms to make things sound better. But unless they have a place where they can assemble, at the very minimum, half of the student body to get information out and to present presentations of basically security of the school, awards assemblies, theatrical, all that stuff is very important. It's very, very strange to me that we would build a school and then not conclude in Prop MM a standard for every high school to have certain required things. Okay, my kids went to Patrick Henry, most of them, and it's just not a regular high school campus. It's just almost a set of flat portables, a recreation of Crawford without an auditorium.
You want to talk about portables? They've got 15 of them.
It's built a long time ago. My kids were in the first class there and all that. But the point is, it was never, ever fully designed as a regular high school. Let me finish.
Either.
So I think what we need to do, anytime we do any more long-range facility planning, is we should set up as a board priority a set. And while I agree that there are schools, like elementary schools, that have themes around performing arts, I cannot place them ahead of a high school having a general assembly area for their schools. It's a standard thing. It's like a gym. You should have a gym. You should have a parking lot. You should have, a set of, administrative offices. You should have a nurse's office. There's certain things you should put in every school, a locker room, whatever. So if we don't have those in schools, I think that should be a high priority. I'm not going to talk. We may have to decide what those standards are, like what is the size and shape of a specific performing arts, if you want to call it that. But I don't believe it just centers around drama. I think it centers around effective operation of a high school.
Very well.
And it even includes complexes like Kearney, which has a huge auditorium, and San Diego High, which should have had one.
Dr. Evans?
My question is along the same lines of what's been brought up is, basically I'm looking at what is the ranking of Henry. I mean, I've been to different high schools, not to all of them. And so I'm using the high school comparison too in terms of this compared to other high schools. Is this Ms. Jackson's already commented on this, but is this the only high school in this situation, or are there other high schools in similar or
Morris doesn't have an auditorium.
So we have two high schools in the district that do not have a basic auditorium,
right?
Correct.
To my knowledge, those are the two, but there may be more. I'm going to have to get back to you on that.
I think for the long-range planning, that should be
right. And Mr. DeBeck brought up about an auditorium that seats at least half of the high school. And I'm sure there are many of the high schools. I mean, at least one or two I can think of that they would maybe fit one class, one grade.
Point Loma is one example, but even University City has this limited performing arts center. So if you go to the schools and you say that the standard that you would expect for a school is the ability to have half the student body together, as that's I'll call that your spec.
Right.
Then, if that's the standard, we've got plenty of schools.
Right, exactly.
Well below that.
Right. The standard currently might be more like be able to fit one grade in, and even there's certainly two high schools that don't fit that. So, yeah.
But this project is correct. This is one of the 12 projects on our list that we would apply.
Well, this, what we hope to do, should we get grant money, and we're successful in those applications, is apply some of that money towards construction of this building. So we're back into the contingency again. This is a new requirement. We would take some of the money out of the existing project, from MMR, whatever the categorical could be. We would hopefully get board approval to, use probably a little bit of state school funds. Again, we're back to that issue that you discussed early, and we would try to find some money in the CTE grant.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm sorry. So to finish up, is there a plan for a Morse auditorium?
No, sir. There is not right at this point in time.
Morse didn't ask for one. There's certainly, that could have been that could be spec'd out. I don't have anything against Morse not getting one. They are getting a lot of other stuff at Morse. What's the total for Morse right now?
Somewhere around $80 million.
$80 million is what they're getting, and Henry's only getting $36 million?
And they might have gotten $60 million in the past, but the point is this, if we're going to do a long-range planning, then whatever we're planning has to include all schools. And so what has happened, and certainly we don't want to dwell on the past about the inequities in this district, but certainly I'm sure that if we audit the books, you will see that there's a huge disparity about the money invested in schools and in parts of this district. And I think all I'm asking for today really is that this discussion be part of our long-range planning with all of the high schools, because as you said, Mr. Markey, it might not just be Morris. I don't know about San Diego High. I don't know what they have in place.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
But I think one concern does come up, and then this is why we have disparities, because the staff, I don't know whomever, saw far enough ahead to include Patrick Henry in this. They didn't see far enough ahead to include any other school that might have had the same needs, whether it's San Diego High, Morris, or whomever. So I just think that it's part of our long-range discussion that needs to be part of it.
Well, just quickly, frankly, just put it on the table. I'm not sure this is the staff's forward-looking. This is coming to us from individual board members expressing or advocating for schools whose principal and band directors have advocated them. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not saying that there is. We're not being critical of that. What we're trying to say as a board, when that happens, we then began getting requests, and we're working with people, but all of a sudden we're just seeking board direction. I'm sitting here listening to what everyone's saying, don't have much of an objection to anyone, but what I don't want to see happen is starting to pit this school against that school and this against that, instead sitting up here and squabbling over things when what we're all doing is advocating for our children. And that's a good thing. We're advocating for all of our children. And so that's what we want to have these conversations around. I can promise you, I'm a strong advocate for having a complex at Henry where kids can display their work, where we can, and their talents, and where we can communicate with them. If we need to have a similar structure at Morse, I'm going to support that too. So I want everyone to understand what we're trying to do as a team, administrative team, is to work with the people that are responsible for the oversight of the district and come to an agreement about direction. Not trying to pit one part of the district against another, but trying to figure out with the resources we have how to get at this thing like vocational education and like performing arts venues, not only at the two high schools, but like Ms. Jackson said, perhaps at an elementary school. So I think we're doing the right thing. I just hope we can do it in a way that we can figure out some more time to come back together with you and to continue the conversation.
Well, this almost is a perfect example of why asking sites for advice sometimes is not a good idea without an oversight or a general vision on the part of a school board. If Morse never asked for an auditorium, that's their fault. But the truth is that it should have been given or made them, they should have been one of the things they got because they're a high school. Okay? And I got nods out there, and that's okay. I honestly believe that it's silly for us to consider establishing a high school unless it has certain basic components, because we're going to move principals from place to place, and they should have the reasonable expectation that they can have an auditorium, that they can have an athletic field, that they can have a stadium or some way for their sports, science labs. Those are what I consider to be standard specifications for schools. Our mistake in the past has been not to set aside the money or even the plans for considering an absolutely essential basic site. Okay? And so then, because of economics, we just kind of flop around. I also don't like the idea, for example, and I'll hurt some people's feelings here, I don't like the idea of diverting, I'll call it, technical education funds, or what I consider to be vocational education funds, into the arts.
It isn't for the arts. It's actually it's vocational training.
That's what I'm getting at is calling things.
Arts.
That's why I say performing arts statements is not what we're talking about. Okay,
it's actually more about
because that means, for example,
management.
That means, for example, that assumes that you have a performing arts department in a school where that may not be as strong an interest as some other kinds of things. That's where programs vary. But the facility, the basic facility, should they all have a music room or a band room? Should they all have a locker place for the kids for sports? Should they have a track? All those things, I think, are basic needs of a high school, and you shouldn't ignore them. Now, when you get into whether you set a program somewhere in a, I'll say it, I'll pick up it doesn't really matter, but let's call it DeBeck Elementary, just to make it silly. So at DeBeck Elementary, you're going to put in dancing. Okay, so that means you got to have a dance studio? Well, you shouldn't have ever approved dancing unless you had a dance studio or a room that adapts to it. But see, we basically start thinking about, let's make that into that, and then we say, now how can we make the facilities fit what we just decided?
Okay.
Not a good idea. That's what I'm saying. I think we should have a specified, what does a middle school look like? What does an elementary school look like? What does a high school look like? And what are the core facilities for those schools? And then we should add to them.
At this time, what Henry needs and what they have needed for 40 years, and they have happily lived with 15 portables on their school site. They've done without a building. They're not asking for a new school site. We just spent $7.5 million on, building a new school site. They're just asking for an extra $4 million in order to get a decent auditorium, because they had the foresight to talk about this, to have, even their kids are designing this.
Even on
and there's plenty of room there to do it. It's a flat area. It's a good bargain. And, they'd like to bring in some CTE money in order to make it a vocational training experience with regard to arts, media, and the technical side of the electrical, which dovetails well with the engineering program that is already there. So I'd like to make a motion, since you need a decision on this today, because it's all intent on the CTE. I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and grant Henry High the money to start this process. No second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Okay.
And I'll speak to it. And I just again agree that I want to comment that we're doing our long-range planning on September 1st. And I do agree with Mr. DeBeck that we have to have a basic thing for high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools, so that this district can begin to have a system that looks at our schools. And that's our responsibility. And the fact that it hadn't been done in the past, we can't go back and change that, but we can certainly set very clear direction for the staff in the future. So I can't support this motion. Sorry. Mr. Barrera.
Yeah, I can't support the motion now. I think that I think there's probably a real need for this facility at Patrick Henry, and I want to know how we're going to pay for it and what choices we're going to make in allocating the money to pay for it. And particularly since we have it on a list of projects that we would be applying, for state matching fund too. So it's a project that it sounds like an important project, but I can't just pull this out, as one, from this list of 12 projects, and from this conversation about the needs of all of the schools in our district, and just allocate money for this right now. It doesn't make sense to me to do that.
But they've already got the seed money. We've got half of the money already in there. So it's going to be, they're just trying to get this project built as an auditorium. We're not pulling it out. It's nothing, that...
The seed money's coming from where?
The Proposition S. They've already got the seed. The project's it's just trying to make sure that it gets the type of building that it needs to be. It is the performing arts spaces. It is already on their list.
You're saying it was on the Proposition S project list?
Mm-hmm.
But what do we need the extra $4 million for?
In order to finish out the project and make it a size that is, appropriate auditorium size for a high school.
And that's the matching funds you're talking about?
No, that's the...
I think that, and Bill, you help me with this, and you vocational folks can too. I may be mistaken, but I believe we may be talking apples and oranges here. I think what we're talking about is the vocational program for Patrick Henry is different from this performing arts piece, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. There's elements of any theater that you need to build in capabilities of, but there are some where there's overlaps. Areas like scene shops, where it is a career technical education course traditionally. The programs that we're talking about for this particular facility are programs that are in place, programs like Introduction to Arts, Media, Entertainment Production, things like Arts Management, and they're part of a pathway of courses. So
basically, where I'm getting to with this is the money that we're applying for in the vocational grant, are part of those funds to be used to expand this gymatorium? And if so, how much?
That's correct. Part of it would be used to expand for additional classroom space to house those CTE programs. Some of it would be used back towards spaces that would already be designed into the theater.
So when we're sitting here saying that we've got an amount of dollars that are Prop S dollars to go into this facility, what we're hearing today, I believe, is that we need $4 million more dollars from, it's got to come from state facility dollars, school facility dollars, because that's where it's for it to come from. So we're wanting to take $4 million from state facility construction dollars to expand this auditorium. Now the question that I have is that if we're going to take that $4 million to do that, how much, if any, of this vocational grant would be used to offset that $4 million, or is this dollars in addition to that $4 million? That's my question.
The bond has money in it to improve their practice room. We put money in there to overhaul their media or their band room, basically. That money wouldn't be spent on that. That would be applied towards the construction of this building. We would reduce the amount of money that we would spend on other elements of that program. We would look at, for example, the student drop-off area. Would we need to do that? And this would come out of the design task force. We would align those dollars into this bond, into this project. I think we can come up with about $4 million of those savings, which leaves me with a $4 million delta. Of that, there's an unknown amount of money that we would get granted from the CTE program. I'm not sure how much that would be.
But what you're basically saying to the board today is you're seeking approval of $4 million in school construction funds to, quote, complete this project, and then any money that comes from any grant we might get could be used to offset a portion of that, and you would be communicating that
constantly with the
future.
board. Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Right. I can't predict on the flow of money from a program that we haven't got approval yet for, but should that money come, that's what I would apply to it. And these are studios, basically. That's what that CTE program is. It's electronic studios and so forth, like we're building over down at
But again,
San Diego
for
High.
clarity purpose, you are coming today seeking for the board
$4 million.
$4 million from state facility construction dollars to help renovate this this cafetorium.
Right.
That's what you're asking for. That's where the funding would come from.
That's where the funding would come from.
He wanted clarity about where that would come from. That's where it would come from.
I guess I understand. I just don't understand why we're singling this project out to vote and allocate additional money to today. Fine project, but we've got a lot of fine projects that we need to be looking at, and it seems like it doesn't make sense to pull one out of the list.
Well, I defer back to Dr. Greer's comments about issues that were brought to my attention by board members. So, and just like many times we're brought these, I can't allocate funds for any project without authority from the board.
Well, I think that, we've...
Next,
go ahead. Right.
Thank you.
There are certain ways, I guess, I'm handicapped by my past. I don't remember, and the voc ed people out there or whoever, I can't remember any special funds coming from California Technical Education or Vocational Education funds to going to CPMA or SCPA. And yet, they're the arts. Okay? And so the point is, how is it all of a sudden out of the blue we start to find money to support
John, they do. Sean, could you come up and explain how other projects do this?
You're interrupting me.
I know, but they do.
Well, they can answer when the time comes.
Okay. All right.
If, for example, career paths are everything we do, then I could say, let me just carry this as far as I could. Let's say we have a program in foreign languages and we'll have translation as the outcome for that particular thing. The kids will learn to translate. Okay? That's a vocation. Okay? Or if they take geography, they're going to learn to draw maps. So all of a sudden, technical education becomes everything we do. As a former vocational educator, I get a little bit edgy about that because I see what that is similar to supplanting. It's basically saying, these scarce dollars for training kids for entry into, I'll call it a field right after high school, are very scarce. I mean, how many occupations does this community, and I used to do this work, so sorry, but you used to have a survey that showed the number of placements you'd make in that field in this community as a justification for expending the funds on that kind of a program. We already have, SCPA, we have some theater arts programs in almost every high school. I know Patrick Henry wants it. I want an auditorium for Patrick Henry in the worst way, but I'll be doggone if I want to use the theme of vocational education or the theme of career paths or whatever as a way to fund an auditorium. The program should be justified on its basis of whether it's going to be immediately effective in getting kids to a career. There hasn't been, and it's too bad for your department, there hasn't been any real follow-up studies made in this district over the years of whether or not any of our programs have actually produced results for kids. Some of them were done informally. I think Construction Tech did it. I think there's a few others that have done it. But for the most part, there has not been what used to be absolute law. You couldn't even get the money unless you sent in a local follow-up survey and some kind of statement from employers in the area that they felt they needed this thing. Well, what I'm seeing now is vocational education is going to be nothing more than general education, and all the funds are going to go, we're going to call everything we do career paths. Okay, fine. So is translation, then start funding foreign language. And so that bothers me. I think we really need to stop and think about what was the intent of the kind of funding that comes down from career tech. Is it to fund general education? If that's the way we want to do it, let's do it and say, okay, that's our policy. We're going to, every time we get a dime, we're going to spend it on theater arts, foreign language. No, there's no shops, there's no construction tech, there's none of that. There's some of it. But if we can find it to supplement the construction of by the way, isn't athletics also a vocation? This bothers me. I really don't like that blurred line. It's getting so blurred that it's basically seems like there's no real reason for a department.
Dr. Evans and then Ms. Nakamura, then Mrs. Nakamura.
Okay. First of all, I just want to acknowledge the kind of can't-win situation that the staff is, Stuart and Bill and so forth in the situation, because you try to figure out what's the best way to do things. You get input from board members. You try to pay attention to that, and you put that in, and then the board says, well, that's not what we want. And then so you come to us and you say, well, we want direction. And then when the board begins talking, we say, well, we really are not ready to give direction at this point. But I do want to at least assure you that I think that we are going to begin moving in that way in terms of having a clear philosophy on which we're basing our decisions, and then I hope that in the coming months it will be a lot clearer. I second the motion because I certainly do support this type of facility in a high school, and I wanted to have a discussion about this. But one of my questions was, is this the only high school in this situation in the district? Because if it was, it seems to me so obvious that it's a bare necessity of any high school that I would say, go ahead and do it. When we don't have it at every single high school, then I think we have to look at the big picture and decide how can we get it everywhere. On the same note, for example, Salk Elementary, which was promised ever since Prop MM, it's a community that is growing, and it's going to certainly meet the needs of the future years. Even if we make changes to the whole way we're locating and transporting our kids, Mira Mesa is a very self-defined area in terms of not a lot of busing, so I'm sure that that's going to come through anyway, but I'm also willing to wait on us moving forward on that until we've kind of looked at the whole picture. So that's something that I very strongly support. And this facility at Henry High School I also very, very strongly support, but I just think that we really do need to make our plans first and give the direction, so that's why I think we need to wait on this, and that's all I'm saying.
Okay. Sean, you cited a number, I think it was, what percentage of the California economy is involved in arts, media, entertainment?
If we can address a point up front, Member DeBeck, SCPA is on the list of 12. So their needs have been discussed with them regarding career tech ed. And where we get into the blurry spot here, and it's not just locally, it's on a state level, is the difference between general education of visual and performing arts and what the state has specified as career technical education for a field called arts, media, and entertainment. It's considered one of the most prime important fields in Southern California. Regarding a facility that's a theater that has a component of career technical education, I'd be happy to go back to the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, Local 122, who's your local union, and sit with Carlos Cota, who has repeatedly told me that historically we have a shortfall of skilled workers in the area of production and managerial arts. So we can provide more information in that area for you. But a theater is a working business and a working model. So as far as percentages for the state of California, I'd be happy to go back, re-research that, and present that to you in a memo.
And I think the number you gave me before was rather startling, because I think people really don't realize what percentage in California, just as the auto industry has all sorts of little support, components that go into it. The same thing is because we're Hollywood, essentially. It's a huge area. I know that kids out of Henry already have gainful employment in this area and the opportunity. So take the CTE aside, but it is hinging on having this facility, an auditorium that is 40 years overdue. I mean, it's just 40 years overdue. And it would mean an awful lot to the community. They've come together. They've had, I think, upwards of 20 to 25 people at Design Task Force that the district asked to come together to talk about this. They had their priorities. This is the number one priority for this school. It's what they wanted. There was a group that also wanted, I think, an aquatic theme park is what it sounded like. And staff certainly put them in their place and said, you've got to, that ain't going to happen. There was push and take and everything else with regard to this. This is an important project, and a lot of it hinges. It really works beautifully with the CTE. So the reason for bringing it forward today, and I didn't mean to jump out of line on this, is because it is also based on it is working with the career technical education piece of this. It's not just simply. They don't even have this. They don't even have this room. They don't have a room with seats in it. Every time they put together a performance, they have plastic chairs that they have to put out, and then they've got to put them back in, and then the kids eat there every day. They've got nothing, and it's 40 years overdue. And I've heard so much rhetoric up here today about, caring about what happens from the community. This comes from the community. Talking about having a vision for 2020 and what these schools need. This school needs it. They've been patient. They've worked hard, and they really deserve it.
Please vote.
Well, the reason we're asking you to make this decision is, and Stuart might want to talk to this will impact one way or another the design and the bid of this work. So if we aren't going to do it, that's fine, but I wanted to hear from him real quick about when you plan to bid this and whether the board decides to approve this or not, how that will impact your bid.
Well, the Design Task Force for Patrick Henry High School is underway, and it has been underway for about 6 weeks. And myself and Catherine have been out
That's not true. It's been underway for 4 months.
Well, 4 months, but there's a site master planning, and then there's been the Design Task Force.
There's a Design Task Force at every school in this district?
Pardon me, ma'am?
Has there been a Design Task Force for every school in this district?
Hoover's got one.
Well, they'll all have them as we approach the project.
I'll let you finish quick so we can go ahead and
Yes.
vote. I think
Okay. Anyways,
the idea.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's been much longer than that, but and it's the point now where we have to give our architects exact direction on where to proceed, and then we've got a very favorable bid environment right now. It will take us some time to get those drawings through the system, get them approved by DSA, and start construction. But we don't save any money by deferring a decision that in the future. My recommendation is that this would be something the board would take highly. It's an unusual step as we're taking it out of sequence, but you would take advantage of a favorable bid environment.
So quickly, what you're talking about doing is, if you're designing this, don't you also...
I'm calling for the question, Superintendent. Thank you. That fails 3-2.
But we can bring this back again, right?
We're going to have a long-range discussion about all of our facilities on September 1st. Thank you.
But we've got the CTE money, and the application for that bid is next week.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. And that's on.
Okay. I think the other items would be on the long-range planning. I know we have some items on the 4th of August, and so therefore I think this concludes our workshop. We have closed session at 2 p.m. today. Thank you.
President Jackson, excuse me, I did ask the CTE folks to bring back the data for the 4th of August. I mean, the background information, just in case you haven't had
Well, I have some other questions I'm going to go and give to you right now, because I do have lots of questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm speaking for Ms. Eves here.
Okay, very good.
Career Tech Ed expert.
That's what I was trying to say, is it doesn't make any sense to have architects